everyone, I'm Matt, and welcome to The Good Trouble Show. Last month, researcher Rob Heatherly was our guest, uncovering a highly organized and radicalized cabal of debunkers creating or rewriting Wikipedia pages called the Guerrilla Skeptics.
So I run a Wikipedia editing group, and it's an international group of approximately 150 people. We're located on Facebook in a secret group called The Secret Cabal, because these are private groups or secret groups. You can't join them. I have to allow you, and I have admins that will allow you to join the group. But we check you out because we don't want to allow, somebody in who's, infiltration. Oh my gosh, yeah. So that's where we spend a lot of our time. But we've worked on pages on UFOs and spontaneous human combustion and all kinds of different topics that are pseudoscience or misinformation. Wikipedia is the single most important tool in the skeptical toolbox that we have. But we keep track of all the Wikipedia pages that we have made a massive a rewrite to or have written. And we are now at 1,230 pages, and we keep track of how many page views those 1,230 pages have, and we're at 51 million page views, over 51 million page views. Homeopathy, we've changed that page drastically. The lead, the very, very first couple sentences of the page, which most people is the only thing they read, we've used the word quackery. I mean, that's so awesome.
I am so proud of these people and the other 100. I have 113 people, and I'm always looking to recruit and require more.
How in the world do people still support this woman? We even have on here her conviction, her legal conviction. Here, if you click on...
For a gold investment scheme.
Yeah, we have it so you can actually go and see where she's a convicted felon. So when people say she's a convicted felon, we're like, go to Wikipedia. There it is.
In the last week, those 500 pages have created, in the last week, 215,742 page views. In the last month, 1,563,493 page views. And in the whole time that these page views have existed, these pages we've written, the GSOW project has written those 500 pages, and those page views are now at 19,063,934 page views. So if you want to be part of the solution...
Wow, if that doesn't smack of some serious culting, I don't know what does. So this group of over 150 Wikipedia editors, which is what she stated, and that was even an old video, they target the Wikipedia pages that they consider pseudoscience. So this could be anything from UFOs, the paranormal, chiropractic, acupuncture, homeopathy. The list just, it goes on and on. They create, they rewrite, and they edit these pages and decide for you what media outlets are credible and can be used as references for those pages. I don't know, I call that censorship if you ask me. The guerrilla tactics of this group are considerable. And so, she talked earlier about the metrics. And again, I think that video was a couple of years old. But as of February 22nd, folks, think of this. As of February 22nd, 2024, the Guerrilla Skeptics has created 2,201 Wikipedia pages with over 160,091,251 views. Think about that. 2,201 Wikipedia pages with over 160,091,251 views. This isn't like some amateur operation. This is, as they call themselves, this is a guerrilla operation. It is completely mind-blowing. Now, Rob recently joined forces with a guy by the name of Craig Weiler, a writer from the paranormal world who has been battling this group for over a decade. I had no idea until Rob introduced me. And both of us are going to join us today to talk about the recent developments on the Guerrilla Skeptics. Plus, we will introduce you to a nonprofit with literally millions of dollars that could be funding the journalists and the debunkers hackers who are seemingly engaging in a coordinated attack on anyone advocating for UFO transparency. But first, please hit the subscribe and thumbs up button on YouTube. You can also find us on Twitter at Good Trouble Show and all other social media platforms at The Good Trouble Show. Leave a comment, share, like, give a thumbs up, and subscribe. All those things encourage these platforms to spread the word about our show to the masses. And what's one of the things we're trying to do is get the word out to people that don't track this topic. And literally, that's why all these YouTube guys say, yeah, smash the thumbs up button, etc. YouTube looks at that, and the more people that hit the thumbs up button or do the ring a bell thing or subscribe, YouTube looks at it and then it goes, these guys are doing some good stuff. And then they organically promote our show to people that have not watched it before. And of course, we strongly feel that it's important, particularly on the UAP topic, to get the word out. So you can also find us on your favorite podcasting platforms. Search for The Good Trouble Show, subscribe, and leave a review. Those help us as well. And we also need help keeping the lights on. You can become a supporter of The Good Trouble Show by going to www.patreon.com/The Good Trouble Show, and literally for the price of buying me a coffee once a month at Starbucks, you can support our work. Finally, on YouTube, super chats are open and are a great way to show your appreciation, your financial appreciation for our work. And speaking of which, I want to thank our financial supporters on Patreon, our existing supporters on Patreon and on YouTube. And of course, as always, our chat moderators who volunteer their time out of their weekend to cover this show. We can't thank them enough. And of course, thanks to all of you that tune in and tell your friends about us. We always appreciate that. Okay, so moving on here. So joining us for his third appearance, please welcome engineer and researcher Rob Heatherly, and joining us for the first time, the editor of the Paranormal Daily News, Craig Weiler. Guys, how are you?
Doing well.
Fine, thank you. Matt, thank you very much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
You're very well. And really, the thanks goes to Rob, of course, for bringing this to my attention. We've been talking about this as well. And Rob has really assembled a great team of people that are assisting on the research end of this. And Craig, you came along. I had never heard of you before. And Rob's like, you got to meet this Craig guy. He's been doing this forever. He's like an OG. And as I said off the air, the more I hear about this from the two of you and the specifics, and this topic is so deep, I can't even wrap my head around it. But the research that both of you and the other people that are assisting behind the scenes on this, bringing this to the public's attention, because I certainly know I love Wikipedia, or loved Wikipedia, and I always thought, hey, what a independent source. Anytime I'd need to go look up anything, I'd go to Wikipedia, and it turns out it's biased as hell. It's crazy. So really my hat goes out to both of you. I know both of you have spent a considerable amount of time, and by considerable, I mean thousands of hours of research to make sure you're getting the facts right, you're characterizing the tactics of this group correctly, and bringing it to the public's attention. And I would dare say probably people on Capitol Hill are paying attention to this if I were a betting man, because at the end of the day, this is about censorship. This is about originally I kind of thought it was sort of a bunch of people suffering from Dunning-Kruger effect, but as Craig so rightfully pointed out, I think it was later yesterday, this is really a group of radicalized people that are doing anything but pushing science and reason. They are pushing disinformation, and man, it's just crazy. So So yeah, so this Rob, this is your third time to be on the show, and thank you for coming. And Craig, welcome. And I know Craig, we will have you on again for sure. Definitely both of you. So Rob, I've kind of rambled on a bit. So if you don't mind, for people that are tuning in or for the first time to this subject or first time hearing about this subject, who are the Guerrilla Skeptics, and what specifically are they doing?
I'll start at the top down and reverse engineer this, but basically what I arrived at after months of inquiry was that there's a parent company, a committee for inquiry was the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry. It's a parent organization out of New York City that has agendas of secular humanism and anti-theist aspirations. That they're not just, they are promoting this globally, along with their scientism of what they believe is settled science and their belief structures. And they attack organized religion. And what I mean by attack is that they filed lawsuits like with Congress, where they sued to get equal time on the floor, to take prayer out of Congress. And they feel that science and government both are stifled by people that are believers in either a deity or something, or a higher power, that they cannot therefore make their own decisions from information and decide what is accurate in our environment. They are deciding for us. And on Wikipedia, what I first found out is that the Guerrilla Skeptic group and the unacknowledged Guerrilla Skeptics that first caught my eye with Lucky Louie, they've been modifying the narrative entire topics. This isn't just about the UFO topic or the parapsychology. This transcends to every category that fits within their dogma that they manipulate and control. Their Project Skepticism alone has over 5,500 pages on Wikipedia that they monitor and patrol, and at will they can take over any page they choose. And they have artificially skewed the data for nearly 20 years now. I can roll this back to 2005, where Guerrilla Skeptics started in 2010. But the essence of it started basically around the time that Wikipedia was founded and the internet. So they've been doing this for 2 decades.
And I looked up earlier, actually, as someone had brought this to my attention, the Merriam-Webster dictionary defines, one of the definitions for guerrilla is, quote, a person who engages in irregular warfare, especially as a member of an independent unit carrying out harassment and sabotage. Is that the Guerrilla Skeptics to you?
Oh, yeah. The CFI, even on their webpage, states that they contribute their funds to decentralized subset groups like Guerrilla Skeptics, their overseas projects, the unacknowledged Guerrilla Skeptics like Mick West and Lucky Louie, and then the CSI subsidiary fellows, they pay to have their articles written that they then use as reliable sources to edit into Wikipedia. So you have the same group of science novices and enthusiasts and pushing their agendas, and most of them with anonymous names in Wikipedia. And then they correspond it outside of it under their own names, writing articles to support their dogma that's in Wikipedia. So in a lot of instances, they're sourcing themselves.
Wow. Yeah, that's it blows me away. Now, okay, now Craig, so you come from the paranormal world. So tell us a little bit about yourself, the parapsychology world, which I wasn't really very familiar with. What is parapsychology, and what has your experience been with the Guerrilla Skeptics? Because you've been at this for quite some time.
Okay, so first an explanation. There is paranormal and parapsychology. Paranormal deals with the ghost hunters that you might see on TV. Also people who have experiences, but not scientifically. Parapsychology is something different. It's the formalized scientific study of psychic phenomena. So we're talking, it's all scientists, it's all peer-reviewed journals, associations with scientific institutions, and basically all the stuff that you see with normal science. So it's a completely different animal than what you would normally see with the paranormal world. And that's my focus, because I'm dealing with things that are basically, imperial. I'm dealing with facts as opposed to a lot of supposition and experiences. So that's my background.
What exactly has your, if you want to call it battle or whatever, what in terms of the Guerrilla Skeptics, how did that cross into your world, and what has your experience been with them?
The Guerrilla Skeptics originate from the Committee for Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal, which is the precursor to the groups that we're dealing with now. So I began my research with them because that's formalized skepticism. They have, organizations devoted to attacking parapsychology, which is like, it's like enemy number one for these people because it gets directly at their belief systems. And this was an area where I began to contribute to the body of knowledge for the scientific community by reporting on them and their activities and presenting this as a concerted effort. That was something that hadn't been done for me. There had been lots of talk about skepticism, lots of books written about how the skeptics weren't right, but nobody had approached it from the level of organizations and from a concerted effort to push a particular narrative. And then after I published my book, Wars, TED, Wikipedia, and the Battle for the Internet, that conversation got a little bit more into the scientific community. It's been cited several times, and that was a precursor to what we're doing now. Is first we had to establish that there was something wrong with the skepticism. And so in 2013, there was this huge science controversy at TED Talks. They're actually located in California. And they had Rupert Sheldrake, a parapsychologist, and Graham Hancock, which you might know from the Netflix show about ancient archaeology. Both of their TED Talks got banned, and this created a huge discussion, which I'm not going to get into, but basically it ended up having Rupert Sheldrake's page on Wikipedia get steadily worse. So he asked me to go and see what I could do about it. And that was when I discovered the Guerrilla Skeptics. Now, they claimed that they didn't work on that page, but bullshit. Of course they did.
Of course. And when did they start working on this page? And are there any edits that stick out in your mind that they made that were not good?
I don't remember the edits in particular because there were so many of them. It was just one huge clusterfuck of bad scholarship. And what stuck out for me was that they weren't listening to anybody on the other side of the discussion. Now, I've run into skeptics before. I know that there are a bunch of stubborn people, and that you can always tell a skeptic, but you can't tell them much. This is
sounds like Nick West. Yeah.
So I knew this about them, but the ones on Wikipedia were a whole different level. Completely surprised me with how obnoxious they were. I mean, way beyond what I had normally encountered. And I'm like, what is up with these people? So, anybody who tried to edit on the page was immediately in arbitration, and they were constantly pushing people around, keeping on top of them, bullying them, making sure that they followed the rules and all that kind of stuff. And basically, it was like, what is going on? And it took me a while. I wrote a series of blog posts on this and managed to get into alternate magazines and stuff, which published as much as they could, but it never really caught. It just sort of stayed in the background. And that was my first encounter with the Guerrilla Skeptics. They ended up booting off like every single editor that was competing with them, they booted off the platform for whatever reason. Sometimes for no reason.
And when you say booted off, they had the ability to ban them?
Yep.
Wow. How is that possible? Are they essentially sort of gaming the Wikipedia rules, or what were some of the tactics that they were using to kick these people off that were trying to edit?
Well, one person, the most reasonable one, they just straight up kicked off for no reason at all. He was set to go before arbitration, and they just got rid of him without comment. That was the most reasonable person. Another one they accused of being a sock puppet, got rid of him that way, and I can't remember why they got rid of the third. I documented it at the time, but it was obviously something that they were just planning to do. They were going after everybody that they disagreed with, and they were going to be off the platform, and that was that. And it was obvious in retrospect that they had complete control. And that was why they could afford to be so obnoxious to everybody, was because nothing was ever going to happen to them. They had absolutely no fear.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. And yeah, again, it's like I hear all this and I'm literally just dumbfounded. I'm speechless. I mean, this thing really is a cabal, and the more I hear, it's like this whole thing smacks of a bunch of people in a cult, and that are not promoting science, and they're not promoting reason. They're really just promoting propaganda and censorship. Now, Rob, since you have been on, what has the reaction been? Sorry, there's a dog barking outside. I don't know if you can hear it. Rob, what has the reaction been from the Guerrilla? We'll just say the Guerrilla Skeptics senior leader or senior editors, or in particular the leader of the Guerrilla Skeptics, who runs this thing, by the way, out of a nonprofit here in California called About Time. What has their reaction been since you've come on the scene, Rob, and brought all of this to light?
Well, it's kind of sad and amusing both to watch. Susan Gerbic and on Wikipedia, and they remain defiant. In fact, since I brought this up and started highlighting it on Twitter, with how they've gone after people like Tim Gallaudet, Rear Admiral, Ross Coldhart, George Knapp, and all them, they've actually gone harder on editing their and Lou Elizondo, David Grush. They have been going even more intensely at throwing shade, as you might say, towards their Wikipedia pages to cast them even more disparaging light on their reputations, because they can, to prove that they still have the power. And I think they're trying to prove it to themselves and to the rest of us. And Susan Gerbic had mentioned that we think that we're watching back channels like, it's a secret. No, it's not. Nobody even said it was. That's a fabrication in her mind, which she has a habit of doing. Nobody claimed that was a secret back channel to get, clandestine information. It's public information for anybody who knows how to search it, which is not that difficult because she can do it. But they are defiant, but they thought this would go away by now, and just be another flash in the pan for them. They realize that they have a mandate on the platform to have the only monopoly, and they remain unchallenged because they don't even allow being able to recruit another editor to come in and help you with consensus to try and get majority on a page. They will block you and ban you for canvassing, is what they call it, canvassing. If you try to recruit another editor that has your same opinion and you try to bring them into a page to get some kind of majority there, then they've been people for that too, which is exactly what they do.
But they engage in the same thing, right? They
yes,
canvass
okay
themselves.
There's two sets of rules. Then, because 2006 Jimmy Wales, I found in a thread where he argued into existence the need for a so-called educated group that were looking after the best interests of Wikipedia and have executive override over the majority democratic rule, because otherwise it's by one editor, one vote.
Right. And
he argued that there should be people that are dedicated to Wikipedia that have override on that. They say if 100 people vote to delete a page, they can come in, one editor, and say, no, we're not deleting it, and what they say goes. So wow. He condoned this. They've been, some of their admins, some of the controversies have been in the media, over the years, and Jimmy Wales was involved. He knows about it. He condoned it. And they use that as a marketing tool to promote their Guerrilla Skepticism, because, hey, we've got a monopoly and we're going like gangbusters. Nobody can stop us. And that's essentially what they've been doing for, since 2005. They Guerrilla Skeptics by name at 2010. And they have different groups that go after different topics. So they have teams that cover them, like Susan Gerbic and them. They go after the parapsychology and stuff. And Lucky Louie and them, in the spirit of Make West, go after UFOs and anything on that category.
And as far as you, Craig, what has been the reaction to you coming on the scene? So we had done 2 episodes with Rob, and between the second and now, you became involved. How have they reacted to that, especially since they seem to have known you for quite some time?
I checked in on this yesterday to see what they're doing, and they bore me. Quite frankly, they have nothing creative to say. And when they were speechifying on whatever platform they were on, or whatever page they were on at the moment, it wasn't anything that I feel like sharing. I mean, it was just, oh, here he is again, doing what he did before. And that was kind of their reaction, because they've been dealing with me for over 10 years. I've been dealing with them for over 10 years, and we kind of know which direction we're both going to go. It's just a little bit of familiarity there.
Yeah, that's great. Sorry, the mic might have been popping. I left my window open, and these dogs keep coming by and barking. So sorry for the Good Trouble Show. There's always something technical or something going on. I'm literally a one-man operation, and I try to be a good television host, but it doesn't always work out. So let's see here. So Craig, so obviously I track the UFO topic. What other pages do the Guerrilla Skeptics attack or manipulate?
Oh, hang on here. I've got a list.
Oh boy. All right. I want to hear it.
Let's see if I can find where I put that there. So first of all, you have to understand that the Guerrilla Skeptics formed their association around a shared belief in atheistic materialism. And the easiest way to describe that is that they don't believe in God, and they don't believe in a soul, that when we die, we're gone forever and nothing remains of us. So everything they do works from within that particular framework. And it translates into an absolute rejection of any science or practice that doesn't rely exclusively on things that are material in ways that they understand. So, for example, parapsychology demonstrates through scientific experiments that psychic ability is real. And the implication of this is that we have a soul, and so therefore parapsychology is their enemy number one. They believe that the speed of light is an absolute limit, so they don't believe in UAPs. Only allopathic medicine is real, so chiropractic care, naturopathy, acupuncture, aromatherapy, Reiki, and a host of other acceptable medical practices, many with peer-reviewed studies to back them up, are all considered pseudoscience to them. They reject all forms of holistic medicine out of hand, and they seek to minimize the importance of the placebo effect. They reject all unproven energy generation technologies which don't conform to known physics out of hand. This includes LENR, free energy, and other types of programs. Now, for example, LENR, low energy nuclear reaction, just received $1 million-something grant from the government. So apparently that isn't completely pseudoscience. And ironically, these people referred to their brand of atheism as non-belief.
This is just nuts. And Craig, the people that are Susan Gerbic or Gerbic, however you say your name, and these editors, are any of them scientists?
Yeah.
They do have some.
Oh, they absolutely have scientists. Most of them are in the area of dissuading people from looking into parapsychology. That's where you'll find their scientists. Alcock and a couple of other, Alcock, Weissman, Susan Blackmore, and Chris French. Although, when you talk to Chris French, Susan Blackmore, and Weissman, all of them say parapsychology is a real science. These are skeptics that are within the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, and they say that parapsychology is a science. I dare you to find that I dare you to find that on Wikipedia.
And we're gonna talk about the Center for Inquiry, which I had not heard of until you and I started chatting. And man, there's some stuff to talk about there. That's for sure. So Rob, the people, we've spoken about scientists being targeted. we've talked about whistleblowers, particularly our military veterans that have been targeted by Susan Gerbic and her Guerrilla Skeptics. And in particular, which I thought was very disturbing, is the targeting of journalists and media outlets. And what I mean by that, and correct me if I'm misunderstanding here, is that they essentially, the Guerrilla Skeptics have been deciding on behalf of everyone what reporter is, it can be a referenced.
Reliable source.
Say that again.
They have a list on Wikipedia of what are not reliable sources, and if there's a media outlet that publishes anything that gives a nod to whatever their dogma rejects, or a reporter within that, then they use that as a basis to argue, well, that reporter jumped the shark. He now believes in woo of whatever brand they label that day, and they put them on this list that are from there forward not reliable, not credible or reliable mainstream sources. But yet they will use the same person, same outlet in other places on Wikipedia when it supports their narrative. So they're completely biased and bigoted. The rules don't apply to them literally. They do what they want. I've had an interview yesterday morning, and it's going to be one of several. The German reporter, he's their number one target because he's gone to court and sued them 4 times successfully now in Germany, and they are horrible to him on his Wikipedia page, and I'll roll that out on Twitter soon to let people see that. But he let me know that this is a global issue, not just the United States. That Germany, Australia, and all these different countries have their Wikipedias locked up by skeptic groups, these teams of guerrillas. That's what guerrilla insurgency is, asymmetrical warfare. You go into occupied territory, you try and not get noticed by the enemy, and you set up shop and you do what you're going to do. And they have locked down Germany's Wikipedia and flow of information arbitrarily. And they're doing it all over the planet wherever they can get funding. And CFI pays for all these different independent programs. And if they go too hard at religion, they even have a relocation program for groups and people that are supposedly being targeted by, say, they go after Islam or Christianity or something, and you get the radicals after them for, sacrilege, then they can get relocation monies and moved. So pretty nice racket.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into that in a little bit. So at the very beginning, on our very first episode, I cut together that clip package to give the viewers an idea of what the Guerrilla Skeptics are, and I went through literally hours of videos that are all readily available on YouTube. Mm-hmm. All you need to do is search for either Susan Gerbic or Guerrilla Skeptics, and you will find all of these different presentations that she has made to either at the convention at the Center of Inquiry, I think they call it CSI-Con, or at local skeptics meetings. I mean, this whole skepticism debunker thing, it is widespread. This isn't like just a one-off convention that happens in Vegas. They have these local meetings everywhere. But one of the things in particular that I was really shocked by is she spoke extensively about one of their main tactics is to propagate these Wikipedia pages across as many languages as possible. So what she said they do is they create the Wikipedia page in English. They perfect it, spend all kinds of time on it, getting it spot on, and then when they consider that Wikipedia page is sort of as good as it can get at that moment, then they propagate it to the other Guerrilla Skeptics editors that write in other languages. So, Russian or Korean or whatever. The goal being they are trying to spread this disinformation worldwide. This isn't just it isn't just like an American phenomenon or targeting as you spoke about. Now, I'm curious, going back to what I was speaking about with the targeting of American veterans, journalists. What has been their public reaction, or has there been a public reaction to what you revealed initially on our first 2 shows, and you've also been appearing on other platforms as well? Have you heard any sort of public comment or reaction from the people that have been victim to this type of harassment?
Yeah, I continually have people reaching out to me for additional information or to share their experiences that they've had with these skeptics over the years, from all over the planet now, that constantly getting contacted and asking to do research for them to find out how hardcore that they know they've been targeted, they know they've been victimized by them, and there's no recourse. There's absolutely no number to call. There's no way to correct the record. If you have a biography as a living person and your information is not correct, and this group wants to control your page and that information, you're just shit out of luck because there's no recourse, and not until now. They're hoping that members of Congress have been informed about this. There's some high-level academics, they spend their career trying to teach people, accurate information, and to find out that there's a platform that is the number one tool for go-to information in the world on the internet that is completely undermining their efforts on any one of these fields, these skeptics, their dogma, they're completely being deplatformed. So like with Lou and David Grush putting out factual information, this group through Wikipedia and through their CSI Fellows articles, they have a whole system that they go through of denigrating them on Wikipedia, because that's the first place somebody would go to check to see about a new person that they've heard of. And then they back it up by, well, CSI Fellows, and on YouTube and on Twitter and Facebook, all these known academics are speaking against these people also, and that parallels with what's in Wikipedia, so it must be true. But it's the same people in a lot of this.
Wow. So, now, Craig, how would you describe, if you were to characterize the personality types of, we'll just say like the leadership of Guerrilla Skeptics, and I'm sure like with any organization, it's not monolithic. I'm sure there's some good people in there that maybe don't understand what they've gotten into, but the people that have been there for a long time, or Susan Gerbic, or I think the guy's name is Rob Palmer, the well-known skeptic, or whatever this clown's name is, how would you characterize their personality type?
So it's, when we're talking about the personality of skeptics, we really have to deal in generalized sense. Skeptics are people, and people are complicated. So I'm reluctant to really narrowly target somebody and say what that particular person has as a personality, because I haven't met them, I don't know them personally. So I have to talk in generalities in terms of the skeptic mindset, and so this is how you deal with it, because you can't get personal, because
of course
you really don't have that level of detail. So what we see from the skeptics is that they target and vilify a vulnerable minority. These are psychics and mediums. 80% witches are women, and they label them as frauds and grief vampires and things like that. So they're attacking a vulnerable minority. They ridicule and dehumanize the opposition. So this would include the Pegasus Award from James Randi, the Ben Spoon Award, use of terms like fringe and pseudoscience, and derogatory names like Woomeister. They identify themselves.
Did you say Woomeister?
Woomeister, yeah.
I've never heard of that one. Okay.
Oh,
lunatic charlatans too.
Yeah, charlatans, exactly.
Yep.
They also identify themselves as keepers and defenders of purity. This would be rationality, critical thinking, mainstream opinion, defenders of science, fighting against woo. So these are characteristics of these organizations. And what they're going to do when they do these sorts of things is they're going to attract authoritarian personality types. Now, authoritarians are a spectrum. So you're going to see people heavily on the authoritarian spectrum and others that are not quite so much. And when you have authoritarians, what you see is hatred, punishment and cruelty, threats and scare tactics, aggression, quixotic, unclear rules for other people, paranoia and enemy lists, shaming, derision and ridicule, rigidity and obsession with control, and intrusiveness. And we find all that with the Guerrilla Skeptics as a group. I mean, they just go right down the list of authoritarian traits. Now, I would also add, I need to present themselves as representing the majority, and they have little to no ability to tolerate ambiguity as a group, and a strong tendency to view things in black and white terms and create us versus them situations. This is all very authoritarian.
Yeah, I certainly sounds that way to me. That is for sure. Now, Rob, the Guerrilla Skeptics, they, or I don't know if it was just Susan Gerbic, but they had a run-in with Wikipedia a good while back, right? Where they were brought up on arbitration, or I'm not sure exactly what the term is. What happened there, and when was that?
Oh, there's been a few of them. I think the last one was 2022. There's another one in 2018, maybe 2020, where they've been in the news several times. And Jimmy Wales has chimed in. And in the early days, he was saying that basically the group that has override early on, like in 2006, that they would have executive override with that. So when he came out and said, well, they're ridding the platform of lunatic charlatans and they're doing a service and they're looking out for the best interests of Wikipedia, that gave them a mandate, realizing that they had a monopoly to continue with impunity. Because after that happened and they didn't get banned, none of them got banned from the platform. Rob Palmer, who's RP 2006, 2 years ago, he got too mouthy in the admin board because it's just bullshit. They don't have to go by the rules. Why are we doing this formality? And that's kind of his attitude. He's been blocked from editing Living People, I think, for the last 2 years, which is why he's not present on some. But he has a huge presence before that on Living Persons, like creating Susan Gerbic's page, McWest Fluff page. They talk about, like they did with Tim Galladay, with his illustrious career in the military, that it's undue fluff. So they've gone in, Joshua Schroeder, who really has the axe to grind against other scientists that actually do something and produce something and contribute to society instead of just bitch about it. As a skeptic, they go in and denigrate these people for a reason. And like Lucky Lou states that, like with the unimpeachable career of David Grush, that he said that gives undue weight with his career and his medals, and that needs to be deplatformed. That he shouldn't have the influence by virtue of his deeds. But the only way we truly know who anyone is by their actions, not what they say, but it's what they do. So what they're doing is dishonest. It's not even, we're a free market economy in a constitutional republic. They are stifling free speech and burning books in the village square that they feel we need protected from ourselves. Because once you admit to being, like Craig said, a credulous believer, say in a deity or whatever, they give you a one-dimensional label, and from thereafter, you're not capable of making rational decisions, and they're going to make it for you.
That's it sounds like something straight out of George Orwell. And the thing that it just blows me away is the arrogance of this group. I mean, if you think about it, it really boils down to, I'm sure Dunning-Kruger. I mean, these folks kind of strike me as crackpots, for lack of a better way of putting it. But the arrogance, speaking for myself, I've had paranormal stuff happen in the house. I've seen UAP multiple times, and before that, I always kind of knew it was real, or thought it was real, but now I know it is real. So how arrogant do you have to be to think that you completely understand everything in the universe? How arrogant do you have to be to think that you completely understand physics? How arrogant do you have to be to think that you completely understand science? And how arrogant do you have to be as part of this Guerrilla Skeptics group to make those decisions for everybody else by censoring all of this information because you think you know better than anyone else? I mean, the Susan Gerbic lady, she's not even a scientist. She's a freaking was a portrait photographer from J.C. Penney or whatnot. It blows me away. So Rob, do you actually, let me put it to Craig. Do you think that any of these folks in the Guerrilla Skeptics, Gerbic, or whatever her name is, that they're bothered by any of this? We'll just say, I'm not going to call it bad press. I'm going to call it truthful press about what they are up to. Is this bugging them at all?
It seems to. There's a Twitter account. As usual, they were completely anonymous, but it didn't take much effort to figure out who they were because this person wasn't terribly clever. Yeah. So they go by JPS. It was so easy to figure out. It was ridiculous. Anyway, Yeah, they'll never come out and say that they're bothered, but it comes across as, I'm not worried. There's nothing to worry about. No, we have this completely under control. Nope, we are calm as a cucumber. Everything is cool as a summer breeze. Everything is just fine. There's nothing to worry about. We have it totally under control. And so you kind of get from that like, yeah, okay, something's up with them.
Something's up. Rob, would
They're
you agree
nervous.
with that?
Yeah, they're nervous. This should have gone away by now, because like I said, they categorize people that that they disagree with as being one-dimensional entities. They dehumanize them, like you said. So when they consider somebody as not part of, it's in their mentality, and there's a lot of neuropathy that goes into this, and Craig can attest to that. You get people like Susan Gerbic, Mick West, and them that are very OCD, rigid-minded, and likely on some kind of spectrum where they have to view the world black and white to make sense of it, and where they feel safe and secure. That was Mick West's axe to grind growing up, is that he was told all these woo stories about God and aliens and all this stuff that terrified him as a kid. And then, like he writes in his blogs, he's angry at all this disinformation that he considers disinformation still being out there in humanity, scaring other people. So it's his duty to rid the world of this bunk and dogma. So they're trying to eliminate religion and any science, their scientism brand that they disagree with. They're trying to nerf the world. And if you're not with them, you're against them, which means you're not human in their eyes anymore. So they don't care how much they torture a person. Like with Lou's page, Susan Gerbic wrote recently about, oh, how cute Lou's getting a lawyer trying to correct his page. I created that page, and Lou Elizondo, and she's enjoying watching him squirm trying to correct the information. Just like his place of birth. We've got a copy of his passport, but they say that until a third person that's a reliable source writes on that in mainstream, they won't allow it as evidence. And they tried, and they also excluded the debrief and a couple others, the English one that Christopher Sharp writes for. They don't allow those as credible sources. So if they try to take his passport, like Merrick, and put it into an article to show that he was born, to show Lou Elizondo was born in Texas, they're not going to take that as a credible source. And they keep editing back out his place of birth is Texas, even as recently, I think, as yesterday.
Wow. So here's my message to Susan Gerbic. Susan, if you want a good it's not WP Fringe. What's the designation for a legitimate media outlet or source? What do they call that?
Reliable source.
Reliable. Okay. So Susan, just for you, reliable source. You can list the Good Trouble Show. If you watch the first episode, Lou Elizondo provided us with a copy of his passport that has his correct place of birth. So feel free, use the Good Trouble Show as a reliable source in your guerrilla operations. I'd be all right with that. Anyway. I digress. Something tells me she's not going to take me up on that offer, but yeah, what the hell?
They will tell you that YouTube and tweets and such are not reliable sources. They're not credible sources to source from, except when it suits them. Because if you go on to Mick West's his favorite pet page of the UFO, the Pentagon UFO videos, there is so much references there to Mick West on his Metabunk, on his tweets, and on YouTube channels that he's done interviews, and his CFI articles or CSI articles. It is just loaded with references to Mick and his theories of why even pilot, we've got our Top Gun pilots that they state that are not credible sources because pilot testimony isn't accurate enough for them. So they completely invalidate like Fravor and the rest of them. Their input, isn't credible, so they won't allow it in that UFO video Wikipedia page. It's Mick West's opinion in there as a self-labeled science writer and video game producer. Well, Lucky Louie edited that term in 2018 for his Wikipedia page. How nice. Lucky Louie in RP 2006, Robert Palmer created his fluff page like they did Susan Gerbic's. And she even wrote, when people need hooked up with a wiki page, when you're a skeptical editor, Robert Palmer's the guy to go to. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's, it's just it's just crazy. I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch it, but Mark von Rennenkampf, who has been arguing with Mick and his underlings for quite some time about, I think it was the gimbal video. So Mark goes on Mick West's podcast, or whatever you want to call it, and Mark like completely just debunks Mick. And it's so funny to like watch these I call them professional debunkers, because I don't think they're doing it for free. When these debunkers like get pushed into a corner, their go-to tactic is to just change the subject. And as Mark rightfully pointed out, Mick now is relying, I guess he switched tactics, all of it's kind of, there are a lot of details in it, but basically Mick is now relying on this assumption by him that multiple platforms, multiple military platforms, radar, ATFLIR, whatever, all malfunctioned at the same time, exactly the same time. These mil-spec, multi-million-dollar sensor systems all malfunctioned at the same time, and that is the reason that he's right. It's bonkers. That's why I call these debunkers. I've been referring to them as debunkers because I totally think that they're bonkers.
It's not even rational what they're doing.
It is not rational. I'm sorry, Craig, you were going to say something?
No, so their stubbornness is at an Olympic level. They could compete internationally at stubbornness.
Yeah, that is for sure. Now, Rob, how organized in your research, and Craig, if you have something to add to this as well, how organized would you say this operation is? Is this just like a hobby? Is this? This seems very well organized for somebody that was a J.C. Penney portrait photographer, if you ask me.
Well, let's examine the terminology and the phraseology that they use. Guerrilla Skeptics and the Secret Cabal. These are like Freudian slips for her and their organization, because when you look at CFI, and it came into existence around 1980 or such, Craig knows a lot more about the history than I do at this point, but they have set themselves up like a paramilitary organization, and they have created rank and file. And the way special forces diversify guerrilla tactics behind enemy territories is go in and recruit people within those countries, train them, and then let them act as independent cells, and then have a rank and file of ability to keep them motivated, to quantify who your resources are, and then even set up a network where they encourage ratting people out that are trying to break ranks. And that way there's an air of paranoia that you can't talk to your teammate, and because you don't know who's going to turn you in, because they'll get rewarded for it. And so they discourage anybody that even they can't, like with Mick West with the UFO videos, he cannot concede that one is anomalous and not human, because it completely evaporates their entire platform. None of them can break ranks on their talking points. This is a rigid-minded, totalitarian type organization that are pushing scientism and anti-theism aggressively across the planet. That is their goals. And I can't substantiate this, but the German reporter, I'm still looking into this one, he said that they have groups where they can't attack the religious pages in Germany because the Catholic Church is so strong there that they couldn't get away with it. But they do have outskirts that, and don't quote me on this because I'm still looking into this, like I said, but he inferred in an interview I did with him yesterday that there's even Satanists involved in this group as one of these subsidiaries, that they go beyond the anti-theism dogma, and they're actually into Satanism groups, which is completely floored me to hear, but I kind of suspected it, because when you're that aggressive against religion, that's going to, for people that have extremism thought mentalities, that's going to be the natural progression you would take. It's such an oppositional stance that you would weaponize it, and that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So they're kind of strange bedfellows to embrace that, but that falls right in line with my history of training and experience in the military, and then studying paramilitary groups throughout the years and the psychology behind them, things like that. It's pretty, for a military person, you can see the rank and file in their organization from the top down, CFI to the CSI to the Guerrilla Skeptics, the unacknowledged Guerrilla Skeptics. and then this is mirrored across the planet.
Got it. Firstly, I want to thank Wildcat Mahoney for the nice super chat donation. We really appreciate it. Your financial support is what allows us to bring you this show. So thank you very much. So Craig, back to you. Do you think this is a very well organized, well-oiled machine?
So first of all, I need to address one point from Rob regarding Satanism. That's an atheist thing. It's actually quite benign. When you look at the atheist version of Satanism, it's all a bunch of nice stuff. They're not there's nothing really harmful in there in terms of how they define Satanism. It's just a way to troll Christians, but there's nothing sinister about that at all. So I'm sorry, that one was still in my mind. I needed to have that. What was the question?
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, no. Yeah, no problem. Do you feel that the Guerrilla Skeptics, that this is a well-organized operation?
It certainly is. And I think, Susan Gerbic definitely gets a ton of credit. She's obviously a very sharp person, and it takes exceptional organization. When you're dealing with volunteers, the talent that requires is an order above what a normal manager would have to do. So from that standpoint, looking at her organizational abilities, and they are substantial. She's operating across several countries, editing thousands of pages, and she's keeping all of that organized, and she's keeping all of it moving. She gets a lot of credit for her organizational ability. That's really remarkable on her part. You gotta give credit where credit is due. That's quite a thing. In terms of official organization, the Guerrilla Skeptics operate out of the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, which is a subsidiary of the Center for Inquiry. It gets quite a mouthful there, because the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry used to be the Committee for Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal. And then also, when you showed one of the videos of Gerbic, she was also, you saw something called JREF in the background. On the upper right-hand side, that was the James Randi Educational Foundation. Okay. And so the reason that that's important is that the James Randi Educational Foundation were the ultimate trollers of all things paranormal. I mean, they didn't even have a scientific veneer. It was all just ridicule and attacks. They were famous for their $1 million challenge for psychics for many years. They ran that one for a long time, where they had this supposed challenge where if somebody were actually able to win, it was rigged, of course, then they could win $1 million. And they were using it to bait well-known psychics like Sylvia Brown. They constantly challenged her to take the test, and she constantly refused because she wasn't an idiot. Wow. So this is where the Guerrilla Skeptics come from, and it's important to understand that that's part of their origin story. That they come from this super trolling organization that James Randi created, and so they're naturally taking that mentality over to Wikipedia.
So it's really cyberbullying at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, it's cyberbullying, and it takes its toll on people. You don't really see the effects of all of this vandalizing of Wikipedia and this basically this tilting of everything towards their particular point of view. But if you're a person that's having to go through a paranormal situation, they can be quite traumatic. And if you don't have any information on that at all, and you're getting gaslighted by Wikipedia, which is the first thing that you find, that only adds to the trauma. There are actually counselors in parapsychology that specialize in talking people down from these situations.
Yeah, and what, having been somebody, including my wife, that has had this weird shit happen in the house, mm-hmm. It wasn't surprising in a way, just because I was open to the whole UAP thing, and then after the paranormal stuff started, that's when we had orbs appear above the house. But I could picture it if let's say I had not been tracking this subject or never put a lick of thought into it, to then go and try and look this up on Wikipedia and reading these pages that they've vandalized, we'll just say, I could see being very distraught, because not only are you experiencing something that you were told didn't exist, and you're going, did I really see that or whatever? Now, for me, or for us, it happened repeatedly, so we knew. But imagine somebody that has gone through that, has that in and of itself has shaken their worldview, everything that they were taught by their parents, their religion, and church, whatever. And then they go to Wikipedia and see this fountain of garbage that the Guerrilla Skeptics have put out, and then you're going, well, maybe I am nuts. Maybe I didn't see that. It is cruel.
Matt, let me ask you a question. Where do people put so much weight into Wikipedia? Why is that? Why would they trust Wikipedia, in your opinion?
The only thing that I can think of, that's an excellent question, is for someone that knows nothing about a particular topic. That is, even like for me, when I've needed to look up anything, I've been doing some research on the CIA Operation Mockingbird, where the CIA was caught paying journalists back in the Cold War days, was caught paying journalists and media outlets to push CIA pro-American talking points. And out of that, you had the Church Committee in the Senate in I think it was 1975, 1976, that exposed this organized propaganda operation by the CIA. So like, I go to Wikipedia and look. Now,
my question is, why do you trust Wikipedia in the first place? Why would the general person trust what's on Wikipedia? Why would they use the platform? I'm looking at the general layperson that's on the internet. What is the expectation of why they trust that page?
The expectation, in my opinion, and was my expectation until having you guys on and finding out what has been going on, is the expectation, and I believe the general belief, is that Wikipedia is unbiased, it has good information, and it's also easy to access. If you look up, let's say like a celebrity, and in that right-hand panel, it's got all the birth date and all that. Usually that is from Wikipedia. But I think, to me, that is the message to everyone, is Wikipedia is not what they're selling it to be. Wikipedia is biased, it's been hijacked, and you can't trust it.
So before we started talking about this about 6 weeks ago now, or somewhere in there, most people have the expectation that there's some semblance of quality control on the platform that would ensure that, the trend over time is that the information would be towards as reliable as, say, Britannica or something of that nature. And that they're acting in good faith and are sticking with what their original selling points were of not being a biased platform. A lot of people that complained to me at first thought that it was a one-off, that they just happened to get a bad rap from a credulous editor or something that had it in for them, but it wasn't organized. But when they found out, all these people that keep coming to me now, which is fantastic, I'm going to help everybody I can. They thought it was a decentralized individual thing that was the exception, not the rule. And what they were finding out, like the rest of us, it's the rule, not the exception, and it's still geometrically expanding. And as long as this occurred in the dark, there was no counter to this. And it's not going to go away this time, because they've broken the public trust. They're taking good faith donations with the expectation that this platform is fair and balanced and there's some kind of oversight. There's not, and donors need to be aware of that. Congress needs to be aware of that.
I certainly, in the past, I've actually donated to Wikipedia, and what I know now, there is no way in the world I would donate to Wikipedia. I would encourage anyone watching this not to donate to Wikipedia, because you're basically funding this propaganda operation, which is just crazy. And actually, I had breakfast with some friends earlier today, and was telling him about the show. And one of the ladies that was at the table brought up basically what you just said, Rob. It's like, isn't Wikipedia trustworthy? And I'm like, well, I thought so until I met Rob Heatherly, and Rob had the receipts, and yeah, That was certainly it. Estimate of the situation. Thank you for your super chat. Now, Rob, you provided some screenshots of some interactions. I haven't really had a chance to look at them, but I'm going to bring these up and have you comment. And then after that, Craig, you had provided some stuff that really blew me away, and I think it illustrates this whole issue with Wikipedia and this whole censorship, propaganda, whatever you want to call it. So anyway, I want to bring this up here. So hopefully we can see it. It's a little, so yeah. So Rob, walk us through what I'm looking at, and you can tell me if I need to scroll down or scroll up or go to the next side.
What we're looking at is JPS, Joshua Schroeder went in on February 12th at 21:17 and did what caught my eye, and I happened to catch it in real time. There was like 80,000 characters of added on that edit in his edit history. So I went and looked at it and watched in real time, and I still have the link. That's the only way I can find it. He went in and edited out the original title here of this subcategory where it says no trouts. It originally was called ideologues, and he had a snarky conversation with somebody, and I've got the link where people can read the original content of that page, and I think it's in the rest of it, and the screenshot I sent you. But it shows that he changed the title from ideologues to no trouts, and then he fabricated a conversation that didn't happen that's down below that a little bit, where he's apologizing for some kind of right there where it says will do, sorry about mistreating your talk page. That is a complete fabrication. He copied and pasted different aspects, which it shows in there, the red and the green edits. He removed bits and pieces of conversations and fabricated this one, and he has rollback privileges. So the new edit shows 174 characters added, and I've got links to the same timestamp here on the same exact, they're both dated 21/17, 12 February 24, but you can't find the extended version that I still have the link to because only senior admins can access a rollback on that. Mick West stated that you can see everything that was edited. That's not true. You have to have senior admin privileges to see what was rolled back and deleted, and there's stringent rules on what you can delete from Wikipedia. This does not rise to that level because he was just trying to make his image look better by fabricating a conversation on his talk page and adding that little smiley face. That wasn't there before either.
Wow. So
I've got a link to both of them, and I posted it on Twitter. You can go ahead and see the original edit that was over 80-something thousand characters added. He fabricated his talk page and try and improve his image. That's completely dishonest of what he did. That shows a complete lack of integrity. Actually, it's very childish, but it just displays the mentality of these people. They think that they have a mandate to lie because the ends justify the means. So if they have to lie to the general public, then they're going to do that because it's for our own good. And when I prove that Lucky Louie is Mick West, he's going to come out and be an apologetics tour saying, well, I had to go anonymous because see how these people attack us if we use our real names. Play the victim. So yeah, I had to go anonymous and I couldn't admit it because, I'm doing the right thing here. So that's why I'm still lying, because it's the right thing to do. I'm trying to help you, help you to death in some instances, figure of speech, but they think they're justified to lie to us. And with Susan and Mick both came on and were, after I put this out about Joshua on Twitter, to try and say, I don't understand the rules. And if I had, then I would know that there was nothing nefarious about what Josh did. Bullshit. I've got the links to both of them. I can prove it. You can, in his edit history, there's only one log for that timestamp, not two. Why is it then I have two logs or two links to the same time edit and there's only one edit in his history? That's shady. That is black and white that he used his rollback privileges to falsify information.
And who is this JPS guy?
Joshua Schroeder. He's a astrophysicist, disgruntled professor somewhere in an obscure university that has an axe to grind with scientists that actually produce something and put their neck out there with theories and such. He has a long history, like going after cold fusion scientists. So very bitter person.
Clearly, it seems like a lot of these folks, there's something going on there. There's some crack pottery. I'll just call it that. Okay, so I want to bring up the actual edits that you're referencing here, and I'll try and zoom it in here. So walk us through what we're looking at here. Let me zoom out a little bit more.
Yeah, the blue is what was added. See where it says no trouts, and then in orange it says ideologues. That's where he removed the ideologue title and put in no trouts. And then
what does no trouts mean?
I don't even know. It's something that was pulled out of something he made up. It was out of one of those talk page conversations. But if you'll scroll a little bit lower, you'll see where he took out and see all that orange away. That was his original talk page conversations.
And this he removed?
The orange was taken out. So if you scroll down a little bit more and show where see where the blue is intermixed.
Okay.
If you can read, because I can't read it. What he took out was basically, it says when the outcome is promoting one ideology or another, then that's what he labeled that that title he put in there with that.
Let me scroll up.
We got it here. Yeah, ideologues. He took out ideologues and put in no trouts into the title, and also down there the blue that he scrolling down again. I wanted to show that. Yeah, right there. Up a little bit. You see where the orange is, where he took it out, where it did, where he was saying when the outcome promotes more ideology over another. So he's calling them ideologues, and he edited all that orange out where he was insulting somebody, calling them ideologue, and he added in the blue, which is an apology, where it reads, "Will do. Sorry about mistreating your talk page." So he added in a false apology that never occurred. That conversation didn't take place. And he even took out an admin warning that was on his page, and he cut and pasted out of that and deleted that comment from other admin, which you're not supposed to edit your talk page after somebody leaves a comment. You don't go back in and revise what they responded to. That's unethical according to the rules.
So am I understanding this correctly? So this JPS guy has been going in and removing all the bad things he's done out of Wikipedia.
Not bad, but he's trying to improve his public image. He completely rewrote his talk page to make it reflect a little more user-friendly since I've started this and exposing him to daylight.
And is that against Wikipedia rules?
Well, they keep saying that you're not supposed to edit your conversations on a talk page, because if somebody responds and you change the nature of what they're responding to, then you can have it say anything you wish, and then it makes them look like a complete idiot if you revise it and to out of the proper context. So it may not be. Well, there again, the rules, they even write rules, they edit rules, and then they ignore them. So they will enforce them with other people, and they are forced to toe the line, or they block them from the platform. But they don't have the same burden of having to follow the rules. They basically are able to make up, do whatever they choose. Like with this, it's unethical with him trying to fabricate a positive on his page of a conversation that never happened. And, editor, you're not giving these tools like rollbacker and such and senior admin privileges. There comes a responsibility with that you're going to act in good faith. This is not acting in good faith. Yeah, this is hiding evidence. This is somebody with a guilty conscience trying to cover it up in the cat box is what we're seeing.
And this is this JPS guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Joshua Schroeder.
Now here's another still that you sent. What are we looking at here? Looks like this is dealing with Dr. Hal Puthoff.
Yeah, he wouldn't allow in his 5 peer-reviewed papers to take the pseudoscience label off of his bio page, citing that they quoted a book written by a biologist that cited Hal Puthoff's work as pseudoscience. Ergo, the book took precedence as a reliable source over Hal Puthoff. He said if somebody had written about his papers as a secondary source, then they could take that as accurate information. So this doesn't even make sense. They will take a person's opinion, say, like if I review his peer-reviewed papers and I write a mainstream article on that, they will accept that as evidence that the facts are true in his peer-reviewed papers, but they're peer-reviewed. But he can't submit the papers himself because those aren't admissible as evidence. They're already peer-reviewed in white papers. How can he falsify that information? It's just ridiculous.
It's ridiculous indeed. And what's funny too, and I think I actually put this up on a tweet on our other account, Stand for Better, asking Mick if he's ever put up a peer-reviewed paper regarding any of his UAP debunking, and I haven't gone back to look to see if he responded, but I would guess none of these folks have put forth any sort of peer-reviewed paper. I know Mark von Rennenkamp and I think someone else that is helping him with that, helping with him, are actually submitting a peer-reviewed paper on, I think it's the gimbal thing. And I saw a tweet from Dr. Gary Nolan, who essentially was responding to a tweet from Mick West, and that's what Gary called him out. Gary's like, what research are you doing? Where are your peer-reviewed papers? Who are you showing your evidence to other than these debunkers? And Dr. Gary Nolan, he nailed it right on the head. And of course, I don't think Mick responded because Mick knew that Gary had him backed into a corner. Sorry, you're going to say?
No, I was just agreeing with you. But Mick also replied when Dr. Nolan made a response on Twitter about sure thing, Lucky Louie, and Mick said, well, I'm surprised that you're taking part in this nonsense, and then frankly, I expected better of you, Gary. I mean, oh my God! I mean, give me a freaking break. I mean, the guy's such a pretentious. I
think he's a bit of an arrogant ass and uses the British charm, I guess, to try and slow people over.
It's funny how his accent gets heavier the more he's trying to defend himself. The more slathering he gets with it and slurring. It's disgusting. He doesn't. He comes on just like Susan and tries to argue that I am not being factually correct. But I've listed links to everything out there. It's on Twitter. You can go in and look yourself on the Joshua Schroeder. The links to both of those edits are still in that tweet, and they're active. So you can go in and look at the two. That one does not show up. It should be in that edit log, but it's not. Because it exists. He reverted it. He rolled it back. He removed it.
Wow. Yeah.
So only one out of two edits shows for that timestamp. But I've got two links for two different edits on the same exact time. That is,
it's crazy. I mean, it's just crack pottery. I think maybe we'll have a new term. So Craig, let's talk about parapsychology and what you brought this up earlier in the day, and I was totally blown away by it. We're going to look at what the Wikipedia definition of parapsychology is, and then we're going to go to the Merriam-Webster dictionary. So here we go. So parapsychology this is in Wikipedia, obviously. From Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. I think they need to add the free biased encyclopedia. Parapsychology is the study of alleged psychic phenomena, extrasensory perception, telepathy, precognition, clairvoyance, psychokinesis, also called telekinesis, and psychometry. I don't know what that is, and other paranormal claims. For example, those related to near-death experiences, synchronicity, apparitional experiences, etc. Criticized as being a pseudoscience, the majority of mainstream scientists reject it. Parapsychology has also been criticized by mainstream critics for claims by many of its practitioners that their studies are plausible despite a lack of convincing evidence after more than a century of research for the existence of psychic phenomena. Parapsychology research rarely appears in mainstream scientific journals. Instead, most papers about parapsychology are published in a small number of niche journals. Wow.
Okay, so first of all, of course, every single science publishes the majority of their studies in their niche journals. Duh. Duh. I mean, come on. That is a ridiculous claim to make. So let's go over their citations here. So their claim that the mainstream criticizes them as a pseudoscience. Okay, so the first one is from Joachim Schmidt. First of all, who? That this is somebody, this Joachim Schmidt is from the Brill Dictionary of Religion. What? Okay, moving on. The second one is from Arthur Reber and James Alcock. So first of all, Alcock, he's a fellow of CSI. I'm shocked, I tell you. So the next one, a couple of these guys I recognize as skeptics, and this one is from 1996. The number 4, all right, from 1998. This is from Michael Friedlander, and in this particular one, they're showing a quote. But again, 1998. All right, moving on. 5. This is from Massimo Pigliucci. I have a problem. It's an Italian name. I have a little trouble with it, so forgive me for butchering it. So Massimo is another fellow of CSI. I'm shocked. Number 6, James Alcock again. Again, fellow of CSI. Number 7, Ian Hacking. This is from 1993. Then interestingly, what they quote from is Bierman and Spottiswoode, both parapsychologists. Actually, so this would mean these are people that actually know what they're talking about. But what they're citing is testing for questionable research practices in a meta-analysis. Now, that's an interesting thing to put under pseudoscience, because if you're checking for problems, isn't that science? Isn't pseudoscience not checking for problems?
Right.
Yeah. So the last one here from Sean Carroll, another fellow from CSI. So basically, they're using their echo chamber for doing this. Now, the interesting part of all this, all these claims about pseudoscience, is if you go to the American Association for the Advancement of Science, AAAS, and you look up list of affiliates, and then go down to P, you will find the Parapsychological Association. So this means that parapsychology is an affiliate of the American Association for the Advancement of Science.
Now, is that still here that you're referring to?
So this is, you won't find that on Wikipedia.
Okay, but is
You will not
this?
find.
Got it. Sorry,
This is just.
Go ahead.
Okay. So this is just a fact that I know about them, that they are an affiliate of the Parapsychological Association, which is the main scientific organization for the study of psychic ability. They are an affiliate of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. This effectively removes all claims of pseudoscience immediately. And it also dispels any claim that the majority of mainstream scientists reject it. Because if you're not accepting the American Association for the Advancement of Science as a source, what are you doing?
Right, yeah.
I mean, holy smokes. Is this umbrella organization for literally all of science not a reputable source on Wikipedia? I mean, so this is the point I'm making. You see this single paragraph, and you can find all kinds of problems with it just on the surface if you know what you're talking about. And their sources are completely bonkers. Now, I'm sorry, not their sources. Their citations are completely bonkers. They're just using a whole bunch of old stuff. Now, here's the interesting part. Now, there's also a claim that there's a lack of convincing evidence. And we go to the next one here. Sorry, I've got my camera in the way.
Oh, sorry, this guy here?
So Joachim Schmidt, 2007. We've got Louis Cordon, 2005. And then we've got Ray Hyman from 1986. Okay, so you can see they're not really using current evidence. So if we can show the next one here. There we go.
Okay.
So this one, okay, you can see the date on there. I think it was what, 2000? I can't see it. It's 2018.
Yeah. I can't see either. Yeah, it is 2018. Okay. You're correct.
2018, published in the American Psychologist, mind you, Experimental Evidence for the Parapsychological Phenomena, a Review. Now, this is a perfectly acceptable source in Wikipedia. Wikipedia does not allow primary sourcing. That's just one of their rules. But this This is exactly the sort of source that they allow. And this one document here is the reason why they're not using any source past that date. Because once...
Seriously?
Seriously.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So this particular that particular paper was heavily cited. I'd have to look it up, but there's probably 50 different citations for this thing from different sources. So the scientific community knows about this paper. There's no question. And this paper makes the case that there is evidence for psychic ability.
Okay.
That's what they do. That's the gist of the paper. They're showing a series of studies, the meta-analyses from the studies. Meta-analyses, by the way, are allowed on Wikipedia. Not primary sources, but meta-analyses are definitely. So he's showing all of that, and he's showing all the data, and he's showing all the arguments in this particular paper. It a little hard to find online, but certainly the Guerrilla Skeptics must know that paper exists. Somebody must have shown it to them at one point. And they've rejected it as a source because it doesn't agree with their particular belief system. So you've got this organization, the Parapsychological Association. God, these words are a mouthful.
I don't know how you do it. Yeah.
They're an affiliate of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and they have this document here that outlines all of their research. There's no way in God's green earth that they are not legitimate. And you can see that Wikipedia has completely turned this in to an advertisement for their skeptics.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. Now, and I want to go back to this this other slide here. Actually, I'm gonna back up one. So if you look at the Wikipedia article on parapsychology, where they're using words like rarely appears. Most papers are in a niche journal. Alleged, and other paranormal claims. But then when you go to Encyclopedia Britannica, you're getting the real thing here. Parapsychology, discipline concerned with investigating events that cannot be accounted for by natural law and knowledge that cannot have been obtained through the usual sensory abilities. Parapsychology studies the cognitive phenomena often called extrasensory perception, in which a person acquires knowledge of other people's thoughts or future events through channels. Blah blah blah. But the point is, It is so blatant, the loading, the use of loaded words that the Guerrilla Skeptics use on these Wikipedia pages. Frankly, it's un-American, if you ask me, number one, or any freedom-loving democracy. You can't have this kind of garbage. But when you go and you look at Encyclopedia Britannica, it is a night and day difference. And as we spoke about, Rob, on our first show with David Grush, we had mentioned that not only do the Guerrilla Skeptics vandalize, or whatever you want to call David Grush's page, but they also fluff up and write and maintain Mick West's page. So it would be like the equivalent if Mick West's page is all nice and neat, like this Encyclopedia Britannica one.
It is a shrine to Mick West. It's
a shrine. But then when you go to David Grush's page, it is filled with all of these just loaded derogatory phrases. Yeah. So when somebody like myself that trusted Wikipedia before I went in and donated money and all of that, when I go in and see this stuff, I think it's okay, unless you know what you and Craig have uncovered. So Craig, here's a question for you, and you may not be able to answer this with any certain knowledge. Do you think that the Guerrilla Skeptics are funded from the outside? Do you have any opinion on that?
Well, when you say from the outside, you mean from non-members?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. There are definitely going to be supporters of their particular mission out in the world. This is we're talking about an authoritarian type mindset here. So they're going to have other authoritarian types who find this particular philosophy super appealing. This is a rather atheist materialism is very super specific. So if people feel really, feel very strongly about it, then yeah, I mean, they're going to donate. And they don't have to belong to the organization. They just have to feel strongly about it. And some of them are going to have money.
That totally makes sense. Now, Rob, I want to rewind a bit and see if it's something you care to comment on or elaborate on. But you stated earlier that members of Congress are aware of this whole Wikipedia cabal. If I understood you correctly.
Yeah, there are people that are involved in high levels of academia and former Pentagon and military officers and senior intelligence officers and such that have good rapport with members of Congress. They were trying to get the truth out. And not only is their platforms being attacked on the information that they're providing, that it's factual information, the disinformation campaign is in the spirit of what Susan Go, not Gerbeck, but Go, the PSYOPs colonel, thank you for your service. She took the helm of the Pentagon 2009 to run their overseas propaganda campaign, and she wrote the 2003 paper of The Way Forward, arguing that there should be a domestic information control program that would be, if she had her ideal vehicle for how that would look, it would look like Wikipedia, where they're able to go in with an anonymity and change the topic to reflect an artificial narrative and never know they were there, hopefully. So this is in lockstep with what her paper, what Susan Go argued for, and the existence and the need for. Isn't that convenient that Wikipedia reflects that? And there's even some evidence that we found some government employees that are editing Wikipedia that's still being looked into. So they're very angry that for all the correct information that Congress and these senior educators and all them are trying to put out, they're being systematically undermined and didn't realize it by this hugely coordinated effort that controls the narrative, literally, because Wikipedia is the #1 go-to site for information for the majority of people on the planet. So like with David Grush, I saw that new people coming into UFO Twitter last year had some of the same talking points about him that were very negative and repetitive, and I couldn't understand at first where it was coming from. So I checked Wikipedia, and sure enough, there it is on the page. And you have people like Mick West and Lucky Louie, who, very strangely have the same talking points. They label David Grush as purveyor of sensationalism and fringe. What they don't say is that can be true, what he's saying, and it is sensational, but it doesn't mean it's false.
Right.
And it may be fringe, but that doesn't make it false either. They use these weasel words that aren't statements of fact to give themselves denial, remove a little bit of liability layers there, like perhaps and maybe, and they use these terms and everyone understands what these terms mean. So it's just kind of an accepted essence. They're not giving any facts out to refute facts. They're giving dogma and rhetoric.
And so are you still of the opinion, and I'm going to address this here in a second, are you still of the opinion that that Lucky Louie is Mick West?
Absolutely, there's no doubt. And I've got, he keeps spouting off that he wants, the extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Well, I'm going to give him that because he's earned it. 20 years of his illustrious service of debasing humanity's knowledge. He needs to be recognized for that, because even Susan Gerbeck messed up and had admitted that Lucky Louie's Mick West on Wikipedia. Thank you for that, Susan. So statement of fact that, he's Lucky Louie. So that's just another data point that we have to substantiate that. But Mick is such a smooth talker, charismatic. Yeah, I'll give him that, props for that. Like he's saying, when he grew up, he thought at one point he had magic powers, and when he learned he didn't, and that stuff doesn't exist. But then he embraced Randy, who the great what's his name? Randy.
James Randi.
James Randi. Thank you.
Okay.
He was a magician and stagehand, sleight of hand. So Susan Gerbic and Mick West and them, which they're both the Monterey County Skeptics. They both live up in Monterey County, interestingly. There's no way Mick West wouldn't be in this number one tool to spread their message globally. And as hardcore as Mick wants to rid the world of bunk, in his eyes, it's not even logical for people to think that he would not still be engaged in this platform. When he was banned in 2007, normally when you get banned, you can operate on that's Craig. If you get caught with a sock puppet, don't they normally ban both, all your accounts instead of just the one and leave the rest going so you can continue editing like nothing happened?
No, they ban them all. They try and get completely rid of you if you're an ordinary editor.
Right. And in 2006, Mick West came out with apologetics. Well, after this first round with him last year, when I found his old edits where he was banned from Wikipedia for sock puppetry in 2007, he came out with an apologetics on his Mick West blog, stating how he was editing such contentious things like chemtrails and Morgellons. So he saw the need to edit under a pseudonym, and he was doing it on Morgellons and chemtrails websites he created under alias names. So he saw the need to then transition with Herd of Swine, that was his acknowledged sock puppet on Wikipedia. He opened that one on April 4th of 2006, and then Lucky Louie was created on June 19th of 2006, which happens to be a very important date on each year for Mick West and his wife. So I don't want to give away specifics, but that's a dedicated date, which also corresponds to when Lucky Louie stated he's going to be gone for a couple of days on June 19th, 23. And then on Metabunk, a day later, Mick West apologized for being not on Metabunk the day before on the 19th because he was busy that day. So both of them, that's another thing that I have out there to show that I've got over 20 examples where Mick West has acknowledged that he's away from home, like on either the days or like a 2-week vacation. Lucky Louie's edits dropped almost to zero on those days. So just a lot of things like that I can provide as evidence to support is, but the writing attribution software, the preliminaries show that they are the same person, but I want to have the professional level where it's completely transparent to see the methods employed to diagnose people's, to compare their writing styles, to where there's no ambiguity about how it was determined that Lucky Louie is indeed Mick West by the writing samples. So it's going to be reproducible, and even the software is going to be checkable. So he wants sensational proof. I'm going to provide it for him.
I love that, and I've tried to be as agnostic as I can about this. And at first I'm like, yeah, it's definitely Lucky Louie, and then I saw all of his very, very adamant, I am not Lucky Louie, going on shows and whatnot, and and I had a brief moment where I don't know that this is Lucky Louie, and then you reached out and you showed me more evidence that you have not revealed to the public, and after looking at that, I'm like, it's got to be him.
You don't want to bet against that.
Yeah, I mean, I
wouldn't take that bet.
It is insurmountable. In my opinion, what you have dug up, tying him to that account. So, I'm back in your court for sure. Okay, so now, Craig, we're going to switch gears here, and we're going to talk about an organization I had never heard of until you became involved in this effort with the Guerrilla Skeptics. It's called the Center for Inquiry. What is this organization? How long have they been around? What can you tell people about the Center for Inquiry?
So the whole thing started out in the 1970s with Paul Kurtz, and this was the Committee for Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal. They run the Skeptical Inquirer, and eventually the committee, for the long name, became Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, and they run the Skeptical Inquirer. And now you have an umbrella organization supporting them, which is the Center for Inquiry. And that's kind of the connection there.
And they're a huge organization, right? In terms of membership and money and whatnot.
Well, I mean, what do you mean by huge? I wouldn't call them huge. I'd call them kind of on the larger side of the smaller nonprofits.
Okay.
I mean, they're not dealing in hundreds of millions of dollars. They're dealing in under 10. So that's not normally considered huge in terms of nonprofits.
Understood. Okay. And Rob, was this new to you, the Center for Inquiry?
It
Or
was
had
a
you heard
natural
of?
progression when it eventually led me to there. When I started looking at the group, it took me about 2 months to map out the core group that are, I call them you have the Guerrilla Skeptics of Wikipedia, GSOW with a little lowercase o. I put the U in front of it because these are unacknowledged Guerrilla Skeptics of Wikipedia that are doing this, and it has the same spirit of they all work under the same parent company, CFI. So these are decentralized, asymmetrical groups, guerrilla warfare tactics, and teams, fire teams. So they have their own that focus on UFOs and other pages like that that are affiliated. So that's their focus with the Lucky Louie. And Susan Gerbic came in kind of a little later because her core group was in the parapsychology realm. So I focused on the UFO and topic, and had found a group of about 6 to 8 editors that were dedicated hardcore to really being activists on the platform, just tenaciously dogmatic, rude, abrupt, and voluminous. And then when they needed assistance to keep control of a page or to take control of it, they bring in as many senior admins as they need to stack the deck and make sure that they keep control of a page or take control of a page. Because if you try to go in, well, to answer your question, I spent 2 months trying to frame out who these editors were, and I had a core group involved there, and now I started looking at their speech patterns because I tested out over 156% above normal in pattern recognition across the board. If there's a pattern in something, I'll find it. It was pretty obvious early on who Lucky Louie was. That was a no-brainer. And then I would start figuring out who some of the others were. But it became, like Gary Nolan wrote on Twitter, it became not about the person, it became about what they're doing and how wrong it is to deceive, the general population that in good faith uses the platform. So I could take the time and prove he's Mick West now and spend all my resources for that. But that's secondary to the overall. What's important here is that we have an entire organization that are debasing people. So to answer your question, yeah, I looked at Lucky Louie's group and it spread out because they kept sourcing CSI as their credible sources. So I went and looked at that, found Susan Gerbic and her group in there, and how CSI then led to CFI. So I traced it all the way back, and I've had a lot of experience with military and studying paramilitary groups, how they function, and help problem solve for some of these far left and far right wing organizations that get too far out of hand for the government. And I've contributed to some of those studies and problem solving. This is directly in line with other work that I've done in outlining organizations, how they're framed out. This one was huge. It took me a very long time to map out. Other paramilitary organizations, like about a decade ago, took me about 2 weeks, and it was a large organization. This one, like 20 years, well, back to 1980, they've had a long time to perfect their guerrilla warfare tactics, asymmetrical, and employ them and be able to stay under the radar.
And let's see here. I brought up while you were talking. So let's see here. So so this is the website, Center for Inquiry. Very, very slick website. Generation of Skeptics. Our mission, the Center for Inquiry, strives to foster a secular society based on reason, science, freedom of inquiry, and humanist values. And, so they have people like, there's Bill Nye, and some Dawkins thing. I'm just kind of
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's a member of this. Mick West. They have a. I was kind of doing this on the fly, so I'm not very well organized on this. But it is a pretty slick outfit. It seems to be. They've got all of so here's their CSI convention in Vegas where Bill Nye receives a reward. look, there's Mick West,
Yeah.
video game science and UFOs, Skeptical Inquirer presents. So they're paying Mick West to produce this content. And I'm a liberal capitalist. I believe everyone should get paid for what their time. So I don't hold that against them whatsoever.
No.
But it's 28 pages of this stuff. It is it is something else. And the thing I would say as well is, so you've got, I think they call it, what is their sort of VIP circle? There's a name for it. At Center for Inquiry. I don't know if you guys remember what it is.
They have their fellows. They have their senior fellows that they have. They rank them, rank and file. Imagine that.
Yeah. So they've got this. It's not a board of directors, but basically they've got this sort of a VIP circle, and the member, and it's maybe about 30 people long, but it's like the who's who of the skeptical world, and they're kind of held in this sort of high esteem for being a member of this circle of directors. I'd have to look.
Yeah, they have a board of directors.
Right, but this is like below the board of directors. But so the people that are part of this elite group that sits below the board of directors, like an advisory board, I would say, are Bill Nye the Science Guy, Mick West, Susan Gerbic, and then the one I was surprised, not surprised, is Neil deGrasse Tyson. So think about it. Here's Neil deGrasse Tyson, who, for the longest time, any time he's appeared on CNN or any mainstream news outlet, and he gets asked about the UFO question, he's got, he spits out all these talking points that match up with what the debunkers are saying, but he does it in my opinion, a much slicker way. And he's going on these news organizations, on these shows, because he's a unbiased scientist. He's speaking truth to power or whatever. But when you go and you find out that he's received awards and he's part of this circle of trust or whatever you want to call it, it's like no wonder Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's trying to market himself as an independent science spokesman, is anything but that. He's completely biased. He's completely full of shit. And it's no wonder he's involved in this. It all matches up.
Don't you find it interesting that like Tim McMillan from the Debrief highlighted last year on Twitter, where a scientific organization, when the earthquakes happened at Christchurch and such, there was speculation that HAARP could have caused it. Mick West quickly published that HAARP couldn't affect the atmosphere in that way, and quickly rolled out propaganda to anything that is conspiracies against the U.S. government. Especially, he's an apologetic out there in front, that there are no conspiracies to the U.S. government. They're pure as a driven slush, like he is.
Right. Yeah.
So Tim McMillan was able to use the word. He said he'd been saving back that article from 2014, where to use Mick West and disinformation agent in the same sentence. He was pretty happy with that one. But this old scientific group came out and called him a disinformation agent because he's so quick to roll out apologetics. And even the science was not, he had incorrectly presented the evidence to refute that it could have been HAARP, that it's not capable of doing what these scientific organizations had cited. And it was Mick's original research, and he created a visual graphic like he's so good at doing. He's a video game programmer. Of course he's going to be convincing. And his mentor was James Randi, who was a magician, sleight of hand. So they're learning all these parlor tricks and ways to manipulate perception by people. They've been taught by the masters. When you have a nihilist skeptic that is into science and magic tricks, which Mick has always been a fan of, you get these useful idiots, which is what Mick and Susan Gerbic, and I'm not insulting her as a person. I feel bad for her because she's not a scientific minded person. She's relying on secondhand information by all these people that have gained her trust, and that she blanket trusts them to give her good information, so that if they state it's settled science, she believes it because they have earned their trust with her. And that's the problem with these cult-like organizations. You get charismatic leaders And once they win over the confidence of their, like Mick West and Susan calls them followers, I don't, I have friends and acquaintances on Twitter and such that they're not followers. Yeah, we may follow each other. I am not a cult leader and have my following, like they refer to them as subsidiaries, because they put themselves on a pedestal. She's inadvertently trusted these people to believe that their word is the gospel, literally, and anything that she doesn't question it, nothing. So she's out there purveying their dogma, and she has no idea if it's true or not. She can't fact check it because she doesn't know enough about science to check for herself. And that's what they rely on most, is for people, for whatever reason, to not fact check and go beyond their smoke and mirrors. Don't look behind the mirror and the curtain, because it's not going to be, a lot of instances, they do not present an accurate depiction of an objective reality. They manufacture it.
Yeah, that is for sure. Let's see. I'm going to display here. Sorry, put this back up. Sorry, go ahead.
What you're looking for earlier was CSI fellows that denotes members of a CSI executive council. That's the hierarchy that they have on CSI. That's right. Council label.
Okay, what I'm gonna bring up here next is the CSI mission statement. And folks, I know it's been a long show, and I appreciate everyone hanging through this. It's a lot of information to digest. It's a lot of important information to digest. And this kind of next phase that we're sort of transitioning to with the Center of Inquiry, I think once you kind of listen to what we're laying out here, you're going to probably recognize that this is likely one of the driving forces behind all of this. But let's look here. So Center for Inquiry, our mission, Center for Inquiry strives to foster a secular society based on reason, science, freedom of inquiry, not freedom of press, obviously, and human values. Center for Inquiry is a 501c3 charitable nonprofit organization dedicated to defending science and critical thinking and examining religion. CFI's vision is a world in which evidence, science, and compassion, which I wouldn't agree with, rather than superstition, pseudoscience, or prejudice guide public policy. To make a better world, we need to use our heads and hearts to confront the challenges that face us as a planetary civilization. We need to use the tools of science and reason, guided by compassion and respect for the dignity of every individual, which obviously they do not do, certainly the Guerrilla Skeptics. To move forward, we need to discard old superstitions, prejudices, and magical thinking, another term the debunkers like to use, old Mick West in particular. It's more than whether or not God exists. It's about more than whether ghosts roam among us, or aliens hover above us, or psychics can see within us. CFI strives to foster a society free of dogmatic influence, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, so let's dig into how big this organization is, shall we? And one of the best ways to do that is let's look at their finances. So when you're a 501c3, a nonprofit, and you have gross receipts above $50,000, you have to file what's called a Form 990. Now, Susan Gerbic and her About Time nonprofit, she just files a short form, so you don't see any sort of data. So that says that her gross receipts are $50K or below. But let's look at the Center for Inquiry. I think everyone is going to be quite surprised by the amount of money flowing into this outfit. So let's take a look. Let's see here. Oh, wrong button. There we go. All right. See if we can zoom this in a bit. Okay, so this is a Form 990, and I've highlighted some what I thought interesting financial facts. Now, I'm not an accountant or claim to be one or a tax lawyer or any of that stuff. And Rob and Craig, feel free to see if I can get this into full screen mode. Maybe not. But anyway, feel free to jump in here. So Center for Inquiry in 2022, and this outfit is based in New York. And again, this is the outfit that Neil deGrasse Tyson, Mick West, Susan Gerbic, and Bill Nye the Science Guy are all big supporters of and very involved with. They had gross receipts in 2022 of $5.978 million. Not not $5.978 million. That is a lot. They have a total number of volunteers here of 120. So I'm having a sip of water here because I'm starting to get hoarse. 120 volunteers. Their total revenue, now if you look at the previous year, 2022, they had a total revenue of $8.5 million. This is not some mom and pop nonprofit. This is big. Now the current year for 2022, they had 5.56. They're paying over $2 million in salaries that I believe also includes a board of directors. $3 million in other expenses, total expenses of $5.9 million. So they're a little bit in the red there by $352,000. We're going to get into a little bit more of the detail of this. So briefly, IRS requires in Part 3 a brief statement describing the organization's mission. So Center for Inquiry, do you sponsor programs and activities that advance humanism and skepticism? Debunking. To advocate and defend a non-religious life stance rooted in science, naturalistic philosophy, humanist ethics, and to serve and support adherents of that life stance, and to publish scholarly magazines. Now they have this Skeptical Inquirer publication, and we're going to get into that here. That runs them $1.4 million. Free Press Inquiry publishes articles explaining the principles of secular humanism and supporting those living out of its ideals. It explores the contributions of science as they increase our understanding of the world and our ability around it. The readership includes scholars, researchers, and lay readers with diverse backgrounds. Now, this is important, what we're going to talk about here. And you touched on this, Rob, and we spoke about this earlier when I was digging through these things, and I'm like, man, I think that there is something here. They have something called an outreach program. It has $26,000 in revenue, but $411,000, 233 in expenses. Now, what is this thing? Professionally staffed outreaches and this is jumping ahead. We're gonna go past this here. This just talks about their branch offices. Yeah. So sorry. So I misspoke. $604,000 for a secular rescue program. Now, folks, listen to what they state in the IRS Form 990. Secular Rescue Program is a program of the Center for Inquiry designed to provide emergency assistance to writers, bloggers, in other words, people that are tweeting or putting stuff on Reddit, on Facebook, provide emergency assistance to writers, bloggers, and publishers and activists who face threats due to their beliefs or expressions regarding religion. Now, like I said, I'm not a tax guy. To me, this smells of a sort of legal tax justification to send money to journalists and people that are tweeting that are propagating their stuff. Sorry, say that again, Rob.
The reward system. If you go hardcore and you get, this is one thing I want to really emphasize for anybody that's listening, or everybody actually. Susan Gervich has tried, and a few of the other editors have tried to frame this up on Wikipedia as that the UFO crowd and others are unhinged. They're even trying to tie it into QAnon now. They're trying to portray another false narrative. QAnon? Yes, they are. They are saying that UFOs and parapsychology has now merged with QAnon, some of them, and they started a really weak source of that. But
bonkers.
They are trying to lump them all together, but they're trying to say that we are a dangerous lot within some of these demographics, and perhaps that they're going to be expecting threats to come out of this, real world type bodily harm kind of thing.
Oh my God.
I want to make very crystal clear. We focus on the behavior, not the people, and respect them as human beings, even though they don't respect us as human beings. If I would expect anybody that is working with me, my friends and colleagues, there's going to be no threats to them, to their person, and yeah, we may throw around little adjectives, but we're going to focus on the behavior, not the person. And there definitely is not going to be any threats made toward their person or harassment or doxing, as far as, listing out, trying to get them fired, calling their employers, all this stuff. I don't want to see that taking place. We need to be better than them. We need to focus on the core problem here of the disinformation campaign that they're rallying. And the only way we can counter disinformation is with accurate information. We've got to leave the rhetoric behind. I don't want her trying to claim that she's a victim and being attacked and then get rewarded with this relocation money and get her a nice cushy, house up in the burbs somewhere where she feels more safe. No one is threatening her. I keep a close eye on this stuff.
Yeah,
so,
for sure. Yeah, it goes without saying. Go ahead, Craig.
Well, certainly nobody from parapsychology gives a rat's ass about them. They just do not care, not one bit. It's not even on their radar. I have to go tell people what's going on because none of them pay any attention whatsoever. This is science. They're off on doing their own thing, and they do not care about the Guerrilla Skeptics at all, except when something comes up and they find out whatever happened on their bio or whatever. It's not science. It's not on their radar. They don't care.
Got it. Okay, let's continue on. So as we noticed, there is a lot of money going into this outfit, and there's also a lot of money going out. If you, in their Form 990, and this is where it gets interesting, these are all of the private contributions, high dollar contributions from people donating, like here, $115,000. Somebody donated $115,000, $110,000, $100,000, $110,000, $200,000, $100,000. Now you notice they do not list who the person is that is donating, and I looked it up, and they are not required to list to reveal that per IRS law. Here's one here: $384,000, $100,000, $200,000, $200,000, $250,000. I mean, this is a ton of money.
They declare, I think, in a long form to the IRS who those donors are. I think they are required to by law, and I don't know what the specifics are that would be able to get that tax statement that shows who their investors are. I don't think a normal, I think it would have to be somebody in the IRS or something like that, or government with a subpoena power to be able to get those records on this. But
I think you're right.
The ones where they're showing 100,000, 105, 110, that to me, and this is just my opinion, looks like the same donor source that's trying to break it up and to bite into smaller increments to not raise attention. You don't see the rest of them are random numbers with dollars, and they're rounded. They're not rounded off. Those look like legitimate singular donations. But when you have them that are specific blocks of 100,000, 105,000, 120, and there's no dollars, like $5, with $3 at the end of that, it's not there. That looks like the same donors trying to dilute out their investments to not draw attention. That's deceitful looking to me.
Yeah, I agree. Craig, you were going to say something?
Yeah, and so I'm going to play the devil's advocate here for just a second.
Please.
They've had since the 1970s, and to come up with high level donors. They've been doing this constantly throughout the years. Their fundraising has been very consistent. They have a message that appeals to a very select group of people. And when those people want to donate, this is really much the only place they can do it, if this is their particular cause. So it's possible that maybe there's some of both, but I can certainly envision a situation where they have several high-level donors simply because they've been doing this for so long.
Got it. Okay, let's keep going through here. So they have wow, it must have some nice books. $765,700 in library books. That's a pretty big. It's a pretty big library.
That's a nice collection that they have going on.
Yeah, here we go. The organization has a collection of library materials, including books, periodicals, and other items used in educational conferences for humanism and skepticism.
Does this list where they also list out that they have a program for indoctrinating children, minors, so they target them with their propaganda media?
I think I saw that. Yes.
So they have a children's campaign where they push and they have recovery workshops for people that used to believe in religion. And if you want to jailbreak that, Robert Palmer gives seminars on how to recover from believing in a deity.
You're
So I can
kidding me.
imagine what a blast those weekend seminars are, of going in and being told that you're a flash of a random lightning strike. There's no higher power. You don't matter in the eyes of the universe. You're an accident of physics. And when you die, you're worm dirt. So embrace the nihilism that you have no significance whatsoever. You're an accident and there's no hope of getting out of it alive. Beautiful message. Just exactly what I'd like to hear on a Sunday sermon.
And that's what they have this program telling children this.
And adults, yeah, they can take their children to these workshops. Hey, instead of going to church today, we're going to go to a nihilist workshop where they're going to tell us why God doesn't exist, and we're not going to believe in anything, and you have no hope, no reason to live, because it's all vanity. There's no point to it. So why even bother trying?
And they know all of this as fact, that none of this exists. They know it. Yeah. It's a freaking cult.
I have a very close family member who's schizophrenic. I also have another very close family member who has multiple personalities. I recognize abnormal psych very easily in people, and the pathology and how they have rigid habits and rituals, when even just OCD. When you have somebody like Mick West, who acknowledges that he thought he was magic as a kid, because he guessed some random lottery numbers once, just like he got the Chilean UFO video once correct. He thinks that he's an authority to correct the rest of it. But he's admitted on one of his podcasts that he sees visual hallucinations where spiders ring down the walls at night, but he knows that they don't exist because it's a visual hallucination. So ergo, he rationalizes through science that none of that exists, so he's not afraid. And this is how they nerfed their world. He was terrified as a kid reading the Hopkinsville Goblin encounter when the ranch was attacked in the 50s, allegedly, by little green men, really, the little goblins. That book alone, he said, terrified him more so than any other book growing up. And that, along with that and religion, that he convinced himself, because he was terrified that he could be abducted or ghosts could stroke his face at night and such. So he had to use science to rationalize all this away and nerf his world. And as long as he has enough people believing him by consensus, that is how they decide reality. It's by consensus, not by empirical fact. It's by subjective fact. Well, not even fact. It's subjective consensus. If they have enough people that agree with them, then they're comfortable that their opinion is the right one, and they surround themselves in the world. Like Susan Gerbic, she was shocked that she's not able to come into Twitter and all of a sudden be embraced and recognized as an authority like she does in her echo chamber on Facebook and Wikipedia, because those are safe zones, like her Monterey Skeptics group that I think Mick is a member of. I can't prove it yet, but because it's not that important, I will. They have to surround themselves with people that agree with them, to have them to allow to feel secure in their environment. And that's okay. But we all need to have a worldview and paradigm that we can manage, that is something that we have that gives us hope, that our days matter and our efforts matter. And when, like what Mick tried to do with a priest and on Wikipedia back in 2006, he tried to strip him of his faith and convince him that God didn't exist. That is cruel. The guy kept writing on his talk pages, Mick, leave me alone, stop emailing me, stop spamming me. He would not stop and just kept bombarding him, trying to debate him and pushing him information why God doesn't exist. It was just awful. And
this is what Mick West did.
Yeah, he writes about in his blog. He was proud of that. That's what put me on this in the first place, was reading that and seeing that is cruel, to take away someone's hope and their worldview of what gives them. I've worked with all nonprofit veterans organizations. I've manned literally the suicide hotlines, talking combat vets down to have a gun to their at the time. I've spent 8-12 hours at a time doing that. If I use the skeptic outlook and say, well, dude, go ahead and pull the trigger, because there's no afterlife, there's no hope, your life doesn't matter. So if you're suffering, just take yourself out. Why not? There's no reason to live.
Yeah.
And these people take away people's hope.
And which is
what they're trying to do.
which is just horrible. And you were talking about Mick West, I guess, sort of a childhood challenge or fear of all of
Yeah,
this.
and I get that because my brother that struggles with schizophrenia, and I'm not saying mixed schizo, I don't know. But I'm seeing some pathology there that mirrors what my brother would do. Is his, I mean, his belief structure, trying to make sense of things and rationalize them away, like with the visual hallucinations. You know, and my brother has his audible; he hears things that aren't there, and he has to rationalize what is reality and what's not, so he's not scared when he hears them. And like for people that have visual hallucinations, like my mother had a head injury falling off a horse about 20 years ago. She sees some visual hallucinations, but it's completely organic because she's got there was a part of her brain that was damaged. She and her auditory complex, or no, the visual cortex, sorry. She sees things like look out in the field. She can see a horse with a cowboy on sometimes, but she knows that is not real. And Mick West has had to convince himself that these spiders and such that he sees aren't real. But so how can we even trust his judgment when he's looking at UFO videos that what he is seeing and debunking are actually what's on the screen? Because it's not a one-off thing to have visual hallucinations. It's a repetitive thing. So yeah, I have to wonder about his judgment in anything visual, because he has to discern what's real and what's not, and that is not a perfect science.
Indeed, it is not. And I know in videos that I saw of Susan Gerbic, she spoke about how she got into skepticism as a child. She was completely terrified that she would burn up as part of human spontaneous combustion.
Yep.
So that was her kind of impetus. And you know, I was looking at one of the comments in our chat, and somebody mentioned maybe we should pray for them. Now, I'm not a religious guy. I'm more of a spiritual person. I definitely know there's a spirit world because I've encountered it here, and I do. My heart goes out to them. But for me, the difference is, it's like, okay, if you're Mick West or Susan Gerbic, and you believe these things, or this is a childhood trauma that you carry with you today, that's fine. Deal with that on your own, or with your therapist or whatever. But when you take these phobias or whatever you want to call it, and then you push it on people, your worldview, as a coping mechanism for yourself, or as a method to justify what is going on in your head, and everybody else's collateral damage to that, then I don't feel sorry for them.
Yeah,
That's just
it's like, it's like with my brother's been arrested a few times when he's gone off his meds, and rightly so. I feel bad for people that suffer from pathologies like that. But when whether there's been a lot of media attention to this, like, well, that person that the police shot had mental illness, so it wasn't his fault. He was charging them with a huge butcher knife. Well, they're allowed to believe what they do as long as they're not doing harm to others. And Craig can attest to this too. Psychological wounds are much more painful and long lasting than physical for the most part. And when you're attacking somebody at their core and their belief structure, you can do irreparable harm. And I've talked to a lot of people about suicide, but there's a few that I didn't, and one was a very close friend of mine. So I take this very seriously when you start screwing with somebody's worldview and their stability, and when you intentionally try to take that away, that's cruel and it's malicious. And like my brother, when he went off his meds and attacking police officers, yeah, he was going to get a shampoo beat down with the hickory sticks, rightly so, because he was intentionally trying to harm another person. It's unfortunate that they have a pathology that caused them to do that, but it doesn't give them justification to give them a pass. Well, go ahead and stab them because you have a mental disposition, so we're going to give you a pass on that. Go ahead and take them out. Because you have an excuse. No, they've got to be stopped.
Agreed.
And
yeah, and that's what I've kind of always said about these debunkers, or I tend to refer to them as professional debunkers. I think it's one thing to be skeptical, be in your little groups or whatever, or be around fellow skeptics, but when you're proselytizing this to the masses, then it's a totally different it's a totally different thing. And always going back to the same thing, it's like, if I, let's say, Craig, you believe Chewbacca is real and that he exists outside of Star Wars, and I'm thinking to myself, man, Craig, I don't know what you're smoking over there at your house,
okay,
but hey, if you want to believe Chewbacca is real, knock yourself out. If you want to tweet about it, knock yourself out. But I'm not going to spend the most valuable commodity that I have on Earth, which is my time alive. I'm not going to spend 8 hours a day tweeting about you, Craig, and writing about you, and trying to say, Craig, hey, Chewbacca isn't real. I'll be like, hey, Craig, knock yourself out. Have fun. I got better things to do than spend 8 hours a day debunking your thing. And that's where it is hard for me to believe that this is not coordinated, organized, and funded by some level, because clearly what these people are doing, it is literally a full-time job. And
like they state,
go ahead.
Like they state, though, well, I just want to add to that here to highlight this. By their own terminology, a secret cabal and guerrilla skeptics. You have two merging. You have a civilian tactic there of a secret organization by mission, because the guerrilla skeptics on Facebook isn't supposed to exist according to Wikipedia rules, but they have a strict vetting process, like your video showed. It was brilliant to find. They have a secret society that the normal person cannot find out what their agendas are for some reason. And also that they're using the terminology of guerrilla skeptics. And like Mick West said, that it wasn't enough to be skeptic. You had to be a debunker, because skeptics don't go after people to push their beliefs. Debunkers do. So, they create a group and brought some friends to attack these people in mass.
Right. It's nuts.
So
it's continuing going. You
have a civilian and an paramilitary facet to this, and by their own admission.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, they call their group on Facebook the Secret Cabal. What more do you need to know there? Okay, so let's go back. So on the Form 990, this is also interesting as well. They have to account for general information on activities outside the United States. And I'll try and zoom this in a little bit more. So in Europe, they have spent $35,000, $2,500. Mideast, they spent $20,000. South Asia, total expenditures for and investments in the region, $275,000. What are they doing in South Asia?
Good question. I've been looking into that.
Continuation of activities per region, total expenditures. And I'm going to point out here, in North America, where we have, you're not going to get persecuted, in my opinion, for whatever religion you are. They have a fund for relocation for secular rescue, $62,500 that they've spent. Then here, spending in North America, Center for Inquiry, aid and support. What is aid and support? Well, whatever it is, they wired somebody $62,500 via Western Union, 51833, program services, aid and support, 221 via wire. And again, this here they're expanding a bit on this secular thing. Special grants to individuals and families of writers, i.e. journalists, writers, bloggers, i.e. people that are tweeting probably about the UAP topic all the time, writers, bloggers escaping to safety from death threats that are made through submission of application to the director of the Secular Rescue Program and or the assistant manager of the program after vetting. I don't know that this is true. I have no evidence of it, but I would not be surprised. Like, if you think about it, so they have this huge expenditure for secular relocation in the United States. I'm sure there's some level of religious persecution, but I think it's probably very low, but certainly not to the point where you're having to relocate people in the United States. So when I see them saying that they have funds set aside for bloggers and journalists, to me, that feels like that is probably or very likely a mechanism for them to pay journalists and to pay people on Twitter to push their propaganda or their
Or
thinking about
Wikipedia
all this.
editors to do it full time.
Exactly. And again, it keeps going back to what I was saying earlier. What Rob and Craig, for the folks at home, what Rob and Craig have uncovered, when you look at the data that Craig, I haven't seen some of the stuff that you've contributed. I know it's a lot, but the stuff that I've seen from Rob that demonstrates that these people are on Wikipedia 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, doing edit after edit after edit after edit, and pushing all of this stuff, and you see it in their talk pages. If I were doing that, unless I were just retired and had nothing better to do, I sure as hell would want to get paid for it. So to me, it just seems like this would be a funding mechanism to fund the Guerrilla Skeptics. They're 501(c) as well, so they could certainly make a contribution to the Guerrilla Skeptics. There's no proof of it. I would hope at some point that there is some kind of legal action, and I would say with great confidence, and I'm not an attorney, but I would say with great confidence, if and when legal action is taken, all of the identities of these Guerrilla Skeptics, the financial trail of what is funding the Guerrilla Skeptics, if there is such a thing, and the financial trail of who is funding the Center for Inquiry, I guarantee you all of that is going to come out through the process of discovery and subpoena. You can take that to the bank. All right, going on here. Here they're talking about they promote page part of their Form 990 promoted science and secularism through various educational activities, including podcasts, prints, and publications, online resources such as blogs and videos. So here they're saying right here that they can spend money, either millions of dollars in the Center of Inquiry, to pay people to write this crap. Here we go. Worked with endangered secular bloggers and activists in other countries to bring attention. Here we go. This touches on what you were talking about, Rob. Ran Young Skeptics program to teach young people critical thinking skills and ways to spot misinformation. Wow.
Yeah, and I just found the Southeast Asia.
Okay.
CFI, the parent organization, has a dedicated webpage where they're soliciting through the CFI France. They are targeting Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Philippines for skeptical editors that can advance the CFI charter in those countries. So that's where that $275,000 was spent towards.
If I can just,
Craig,
if I can just add something here. So, what I see from this is that they're, one thing you can see is that they're fulfilling the mission that they are setting out to do. I mean, they said it's our mission to educate people through media on these particular topics, and that's exactly how they're spending their money. So from just that standpoint, it's, oh my God, look at what these people are doing. And on the other hand, well, they're fulfilling the mission that they said they were going to do when they filed the papers. So there's that part. But what you need to take away from this is that the skeptics are not, there's no science about this. This is a media organization designed to get out the word on secular humanism. It really doesn't have anything to do with science and scholarship per se. Now, Wikipedia is strictly a scholarship enterprise, or at least it's supposed to be. So having secular humanists who are being paid to spread secular humanism on Wikipedia, well, that's technically propaganda. That's not scholarship. Mm-hmm. So this is, for the rest of us, this is the takeaway here, basically, is that Wikipedia is being hijacked to spread this particular not religion belief. That's what they're doing, and people are being paid to do that. And so, another point that you can take from that is that Wikipedia is extremely vulnerable to groups that want to use it for their own purposes. The Guerrilla Skeptics have demonstrated on a very large scale how to do that, but you can also extrapolate from that there are going to be other groups that use the exact same processes to capture other areas of Wikipedia and do the same thing, which makes Wikipedia incredibly untrustworthy for ordinary information. You have no idea whether the subject that you're looking at is contentious and captured by some special interest group that's using it to their own advantage in order to sell a certain viewpoint. You just don't know. It just casts the entire encyclopedia in a bad light.
It absolutely does, and very well put. I mean, they, just like you said, they are doing what they said what they set out to do, and they're doing it very well. They've got millions of dollars to do it, and and the thing that's interesting too, so I spoke about that earlier about how Susan Gerbic talks about how one of their main goals is to write this perfect Wikipedia page that propagates their worldview, and then to send it off to other Wikipedia editors that are part of the Guerrilla Skeptics to write this in other languages. And here it is in the IRS thing where they're spending money for Wikipedia editors. I mean, it's to me, it's clearly tied into the same thing. And Craig, you were talking about, the media part of this. And, you look here where their program service accomplishments, their Skeptical Inquirer magazine. Skeptical Inquirer explores extraordinary claims from a scientific perspective. They examine what the scientific community knows about controversial subjects within the realms of the paranormal and elsewhere. The publications expose pseudoscience and provide expert commentary. I don't know about that expert part, that's for sure. On hot button issues within society, they avoid the sensationalism often presented by the press, television, and movies to provide critical thinking and with the information online. They talk here about their programs, including the conference. I don't know what this Robert Green Ingersoll Birthplace Museum program is, but man, sounds pretty culty to me. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of beat that dead horse. But, in my opinion, Craig, you really hit it on the head. They set out to do this. It is a media organization. They use media to proselytize their worldview on all this stuff. And they do it in a very non-transparent guerrilla way with asymmetric warfare, if you want to call that. And it's just crazy. So if we have time here for a couple of questions, if you guys don't mind, before we get to that, I want to point out tonight on Coast to Coast Radio, not Wikipedia. Rob Heatherly will be a guest on Coast to Coast Radio tonight to talk about his findings with this whole Wikipedia, Wikigate, as I like to call it, of these bonkers folks that are putting this stuff out. Rob, where can we find that? How can people listen? Is this going to be on your Twitter page? And what time is it on? And are you live? Tell us all the goodies. I'm really excited about this. I love Coast to Coast. They have a huge, huge audience. This is great news that this is getting out.
Yeah, George Knapp and one of his close friends are going to be speaking with me tonight. I think it's at midnight Central Time. I'll make sure of that, but I'm sure it's on their Twitter page, and I'll tweet it out after this on mine Twitter page also to make sure that it's out there. I think Tiny Klaus has tweeted about this tonight, so we're going to go over how George Knapp's page and how he was turned on to this through his friend that tried to edit his page on his behalf last year, whenever it was, and was met with very hostile reactions. And they thought it was a isolated event until they found my tweets about this that somebody alerted them to, and realized that it wasn't a isolated event. It is a very well coordinated, calculated, ongoing problem that is debasing scores of people that go against their dogma they have any prominence whatsoever. They'll even create a page like they did the Lozandos just to defame them and then go on their other platforms. And so George Knapp wanted to discuss this tonight and his experience and what the implications are and how this could happen. And the person that tried to make those edits on his behalf, not paid edits, but an informed edit, like with Lou's page trying to get his birthday in there. They keep citing the conflict of interest because, if they're financially paid to do this or they have, there's some kind of financial ties. Susan Gerbic and Mick West and all them cite CSI and CFI. They are financially tied to that. There's a huge conflict of interest there. So this is the kind of thing we're going to talk about tonight on the Coast to Coast, is how they keep doing it systematically to attack people they disagree with on multiple fronts.
That's fantastic. I'm certainly going to be listening, and I hope everyone here will be listening as well. So let's get to a few questions. And firstly, thank you to everyone for hanging out or sticking with us on this whole thing. It's important information that I think everyone should be aware of. This is from David Smethurst, who was recently on our show with Frank from UFO Thinker podcast. It was a great show. However, Frank's internet connection was mysteriously kept going down. I don't know if it's Ronald, Big Daddy Ronald Moultrie playing his tricks. I was recently on a podcast. It wasn't mine, but I was on as a guest, and 3/4 of the way, and it wasn't even a UFO podcast, but I was there to talk about it. And right at the very end, the whole connection goes dead. And I'm thinking, that's kind of weird. And I immediately get a text back from the podcast host, who I guess they were filming the podcast on 2 separate brand new iPhones that were both plugged in, had been plugged in all day. And why it went off the air was all of a sudden, both phones drained to 0 and turned off. And that was freaking weird. And then, of course, they text the next week saying, oh, yeah, we used the same phones on another show and no issue. Anyway, UFO Thinker podcast, if you guys are not subscribers to them, really great show. I love these guys. Anyway, David was picking up the slack on the show when Frank was offline, unfortunately. But anyway, David has a great question here. What does the panel think Wikipedia may respond to? Reputational damage, damage to donations, or damage to its charitable status? Is there a central oversight point? Craig, I'll put that to you first.
Wikipedia has gone through so many of these types of crises over the years that I would guess that their response is going to be no response, unless somebody asks them directly, and then they'll say something on the order of, well, we know this is a problem and we're working on it. Right, and that's been their go-to response for pretty much anything. And of course, nobody works on it, nothing ever gets done, but they promise to.
Right.
I'm sure it's very sincere.
Yeah. Rob, your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, they're going to have to be first of all, the problem with fair use of people has to be quantified and be able to show what the problem is before we can even try and fix it. So what we're doing is mapping that out for people to see just how expansive this is, and then push for accountability and reform. If they're going to be an activist platform, it needs to be recognized on the internet as such. And I think that's where Congress and them can help out with doing some inquiries. If they're taking donations of people in good faith with that expectation, I need to look at the rules for 501s and such, but I think that they are in violation of some of that, at least ethically, if not legally violated. And they're not going to change from inside. Like Craig said, this has gone many times. They know it's there, it's rampant, it's okay. But so it's going to be forced from the outside.
Got it. Wildcat Mahone, thank you for the super chat. Same estimate of the situation. Thank you for the super chat as well. Debunkers have been getting owned for 75 plus years. Here's from Bigfoot Pegrande. Question: what about the random number generator experiment? See also Journal of Science Exploration. I don't know what that is. Any idea?
Okay. Yeah. So this is a random number generator. This usually refers to psychokinesis experiments. This is called also telekinesis. there have been a ton of experiments over the years, and if you want to know what's going on with that, you can go to the Sci Encyclopedia. This is PSI Encyclopedia. It's put out by the Society for Psychical, the SPR, Society for Psychical Research. So Sci Encyclopedia, and look up psychokinesis, and that starts with a P. And then that will give you a whole rundown of all the experiments that have been done in that area. It's an excellent resource for parapsychology. Absolutely phenomenal for an average user to get caught up on what's going on.
Excellent. I love that. All right, yeah, guys, my hat is off to both of you for the amount of time that you've spent in bringing this to the public eye. I think this is just incredibly important. And as you asked earlier, Rob, why did you go to Wikipedia? I think that I am one of millions of people that have trusted it for eons and eons, as long as they've been around, really. And as the seventh most popular website on the web, it is clearly an important platform for disseminating information. And what you guys have uncovered as far as the hijacking of this, and really, if you think about it, it's the hijacking of freedom of speech. When you have this group that is deciding what can go on these pages, what journalists are acceptable, what media outlets are acceptable. Man, that's censorship. It's wrong. It's un-American, and it should, frankly, anger all of this. But I appreciate your time. I appreciate you staying on for this very long show. I think probably the longest one we've ever done. And yeah, I can't wait to hear more of what you guys uncover. And yeah, any last messages to our audience, either from you or from Rob or Craig?
Well, personally, I don't want to see somebody else's religion on Wikipedia. So I prefer to see that all go away. That's just my opinion.
Rob?
Yeah, well, I agree with him. But here's something Neil deGrasse Tyson has on his page of Wikipedia. He feels the most important feature is the analysis of information that comes your way. And that's what he doesn't see enough of in this world. There's a level of gullibility that leaves people susceptible to being taken advantage of. I see science literacy as a kind of vaccine against charlatans who would try to exploit your ignorance. Well, I would challenge Neil deGrasse Tyson. They're not providing the facts for people to make that decision. So he's part of the problem he's citing here, because the gullibility, people need accurate information, and this organization he is tied to are directly skewing that and not providing empirical evidence. They're advancing only what they accept with their dogma. So he's completely in violation of his own ethos.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, I hope you're watching us. I tagged you in the tweet. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. Look forward to having you back on when you have I know you're going to dig up a lot more stuff with the amount that, and I've seen a lot of it that the public hasn't seen. And man, both you guys are just building a mountain of evidence. That is for sure. So thank you. Thanks for joining us. And again, everyone, please tune in to Rob on
Twitter. Well, on Coast to Coast. Yeah. Well, I also want to say I'm going to be publishing on my YouTube channel with Shannon Scott, my best friend and partner in crime, shorter segments on this as they come up, so I can get brief information out there on this. So that's Military Witnesses to UAP channel with Shannon Scott. So awesome. We will be firing that back up.
Excellent. All right. Best of luck on the show tonight. I know you guys are going to kill it. You guys killed it here. I'm so happy I had both of you on. Craig, so nice to meet you virtually, and really appreciate what you've brought to the table. And man, you guys are doing just really great work. So thank you very much. Folks, thanks for hanging out with us for this very long show. We very much appreciate it. Again, if you enjoyed our program, we always appreciate a thumbs up, a subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Again, it really is much more, very, very helpful, much more than I think a lot of people realize. So we appreciate your support, and we will see you guys again soon on the Good Trouble Show.